Chapter 1431. 10,000-Year Ice Souls. 3. Sister. Jian Chen beamed with delight when he saw Changyang Mingyue. He temporarily put the matter of Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu aside and immediately walked over. Brother, you've finally come. I've waited for you for so many years already. It's been way more than the single year we agreed on before. Changyang Mingyue brightly smiled at Jian Chen as she stood at the entrance of the Divine Hall. She had spoken like she chastising Jian Chen, but she had no intentions of angering him at all. Jian Chen smiled apologetically. He had always been busy with the revival of the sea goddess during that time. He had gone into the Sea of Despair with Yadrium in search of the sea goddess Supreme Divine Hall, and just that had taken a very long time. When the two of them had returned with the Divine Hall, the agreed time had passed long ago. Afterward, he had to handle the sea goddess resurrection ceremony and stop the two other hall elders. Returning to the Tianyuan continent after that, he needed to handle the invasion of the foreign world, so he was just busy, forcing him to temporarily put off the promise, all the way until today. Jian Chen gave Changyang Mingyue a simple explanation and Changyang Mingyue immediately smiled. Brother, you don't need to explain things to me. I'm not blaming you. Changyang Mingyue gently sighed as she reached there. It's just a pity that I haven't been able to leave the Ice Goddess Hall in all these years, making you suffer so much all by yourself. Otherwise, I would have helped you no matter what and taught all those enemies that have made things difficult for you a lesson. Jian Chen smiled from the bottom of his heart when he heard her words. He said, Sister, I now possess that strength. All my past enemies are no longer my opponent, even if they are Saint Emperors. Yeah, you've become so impressive now. You conducted a slaughter against the Saint Emperors of the foreign world. None of them were your opponent. You killed at least 200 of them. I learned all this from Protector Xueqi. Sigh, and I had thought that I was very powerful now, but I've only just discovered that I'm still not as great as you. Changyang Mingyue smiled. She did not become depressed at all and became happy for Jian Chen instead. She felt proud of her brother's strength. Brother, why don't you quickly tell me about the interesting things you've come across over the past few years? I'm extremely curious as to how your strength has increased so quickly. Changyang Mingyue asked out of interest. Jian Chen gently smiled and soon gave a brief overview of everything that had happened to him over the past few years. However, he described many events in a single sentence and did not go into detail, including the matter regarding the Xianhuang microcosm. It was not because he did not trust Changyang Mingyue, but he was worried about revealing something to Protector Xueqi, who had an unfathomable strength. Jian Chen did not know how strong Protector Xueqi was even now, whether she was of the origin realm or at godhood. He believed that even his communication techniques would not be able to hide what he said from her ears. Sister, seniors Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu who came with me a few years ago were sealed up here by Protector Xueqi. I am completely in debt to the three of them. It's even possible to say that I would not still be alive if it wasn't for the three of them. Please help me persuade Protector Xueqi to release the three seniors, said Jian Chen. He knew that he could only rely on his sister to save the three of them with his current strength. What? Something like that happened? This Protector Xueqi is going more and more overboard, even laying her hands on your saviors. Let's go. I'll take you to see Protector Xueqi right now. Changyang Mingyue was furious. She really cared about her brother. To her, his saviors were her saviors as well. Protector Xueqi's treatment of the three of them had angered her once again. Changyang Mingyue immediately brought Jian Chen into the Ice Goddess Hall. As soon as he stepped into the Divine Hall, a bone-piercing chill appeared and caused Jian Chen to shiver uncontrollably. He immediately began to circulate the energy within him to resist it. This was the first time Jian Chen had entered the extremely mysterious Ice Goddess Hall, so he could not help but look around. He discovered that the interior of the Divine Hall was snow-white, completely constructed from ice crystals. It seemed just like a world of ice. Besides that, the mysterious Divine Hall was not really eye-catching. However, Jian Chen understood that behind the Divine Hall's ordinary appearance was something terrifying that he could not sense. He knew that it was not because the Divine Hall was ordinary, but it was because he was not strong enough and unable to see through it. Along the way, Jian Chen discovered a few other people cultivating within the Divine Hall. There were many saint rulers and saint kings and even quite a few heaven saint masters. They all worked as servants. All the people that Changyang Mingyue came across bowed politely toward her. They were extremely courteous. These people should all be from the Tianyuan continent. Jian Chen glanced at them casually and discovered that they were all human. Very soon, Jian Chen was brought before Protector Xueqi with Chongyang Mingyue's guidance. Protector Xueqi remained seated on her bed in her silver-white armor the same as before, and she only stood up to bow to Chongyang Mingyue the moment she saw her. However, before changing Mingyue could ask about anything, she said to Jian Chen, "The three of them were saved soon after you left. They are no longer on this tundra." Jian Chen became stunned and was overwhelmed by disbelief. Was there still anyone who could save the three of them with Protector Xueqi's strength? Senior who saved them? Jian Chen asked with clasped hands. Mo Tianyun. Protector Xueqi responded coldly. What? Senior Mo Tianyun did? Is Senior Mo Tianyun still on the continent? Jian Chen was shocked as his heart churned. This matter was just far too astounding. It was only a clone of Mo Tianyun. He probably just sent it down from a higher world. I can't sense the presence of that clone any longer now. It must have dispersed. After all, it's not that easy to come to this world, Protector Xueqi replied. Jian Chen looked at Protector Xueqi in surprise. He felt that she was rather different today. According to his understanding of her, she would never have wasted words on others with her pride. Yet she had become patient enough today to explain things to him. Today was quite an abnormality. Protector Xueqi, are you looking down on me? Since the three seniors were my brother's saviors, they're my saviors as well. You actually trapped my saviors here. You really are going more and more overboard. Chongyang Mingyue stared at Protector Xueqi coldly. Protector Xueqi was powerful, but she was not afraid of her. This one understands. This one trapped them only because they possessed saint artifacts that did not belong to this world. Protector Xueqi politely responded. Let's just leave the matter at this since the seniors have already been freed, sister. Jian Chen quickly added, seeing how Chongyang Mingyue was still furious. Protector Xueqi was a powerful expert after all. She possessed her own pride, so he did not wish for his sister to press her too much and end up with some unexpected outcomes. Chongyang Mingyue snorted coldly. Since my brothers put it like that, I won't dwell on this matter anymore. However, I don't wish to see something like this happen again, Protector Xueqi. This one understands. Protector Xueqi remained very polite. She did not feel displeased at all even while being scolded by Chongyang Mingyue, who had not even reached Origin Realm, despite being a god king. It was as if this was supposed to happen. This was because Chongyang Mingyue was the reincarnation of the snow goddess. Similar to the ice goddess, she was her master. Chongyang Mingyue and Jian Chen left. The two of them strolled through the divine hall casually as they talked about their daily lives. There's still one more year before my profound ice body matures. At that time, I'll be able to leave this place, so don't worry, brother. The next time the world of Forsaken Saints invades, I'll fight alongside you. Don't underestimate me, all right? I may not be as strong as you right now, I'm only a Saint Emperor, but once my profound ice body matures, I'll immediately reach the Origin Realm. Coupled with the 10,000-year-old ice souls, I'll only become even more powerful. Even you might not end up being my opponent, Chongyang Mingyue giggled. Afterward, she immediately pulled out a fist-sized piece of ice crystal with a flip of her hand. Brother, this is a 10,000-year-old ice soul. I have 3 of these. Protector Xueqi said that each one of them can only be condensed after 1,000,000 years, so it's extremely precious. I'll give you one as a gift from me. Chongyang Mingyue passed the ice soul to Jian Chen. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He stared at the 10,000-year-old ice soul as shock gradually appeared. He could sense that the energy within the ice soul was even more terrifying than a 5th-grade violet cloud peaches. It possessed several times the energy, possibly even several dozen times the energy in a peach. At the same time, the energy within the ice soul was very gentle, just like the peaches. It could easily be absorbed. Sister, this is for you to increase your strength. I can't accept it. Jian Chen immediately declined the gift. He knew that the 10,000-year-old ice soul was even more precious than the 5th-grade violet cloud peaches, which was exactly why he could not accept it. The 3 10,000-year-old ice souls were the most precious items on his sister. They were to increase her own strength, and every one that she lost would reduce her strength in the future. On the other hand, he possessed quite a few heavenly resources similar to the ice soul. They may not be as precious, but he had many more of them. Chongyang Mingyue frowned and her face immediately darkened. She was displeased and said, as if she was scolding a junior, "Brother, this is a gift from your sister. You have to accept it whether you want to or not, or you'll be looking down on your sister. Sister this. Jian Chen was troubled. He wished that she would use all 3 ice souls and would become even more powerful. Take it. You have to accept my gifts. I'll stay by your side until you fully absorb it. You're not allowed to take it out, Chongyang Mingyue said without giving him any room to reject her gift. She did not let him take the ice soul away because she was afraid that Protector Xueqi would steal it back. Chapter 1432. The 5th Layer of the Chaotic Body, 1. Finally, Jian Chen ran out of options. He could only accept the extremely precious 10,000-year-old ice soul. The extreme coldness within the ice soul had been removed, but it was unable to change its base properties. As a result, it still felt like ice to Jian Chen when he held it in his hand. However, he did not feel cold at all. Instead, he felt warm inside. He understood just how important the ice soul was to Chongyang Mingyue. If it was used by her, the increase in strength she would gain would definitely be greater than if it was used on himself. After all, he practiced the chaotic body. The energy required to progress through each layer was incalculably large. However, Chongyang Mingyue did not think about herself at all. She was willing to progress a little slower just to help him, which touched Jian Chen. Brother, come. I'll find a room for you and then I will personally watch over you so that you can absorb the entire ice soul. Chongyang Mingyue pulled Jian Chen toward a room meant for cultivation. Jian Chen did not resist. He knew just how determined his sister was and that it would be useless no matter how he resisted. All he could do was burn her kindness deeply into his heart and never forget about it. Jian Chen entered a cavern of ice under Chongyang Mingyue's lead. Coldness filled the room. It was abundant like the energy of the world. A piece of cushion-like pure white ice sat in the center of the room and gave off waves of coldness. Brother, Protector Xueqi has said that this piece of profound ice is extraordinary. It will bring you benefits if you cultivate on it. You can emerge after you completely absorb the ice soul, Chongyang Mingyue said as she pointed at the piece of ice. After that, she closed the door to the room with a wave of her hand, leaving Jian Chen in there all by himself. She sat down outside to personally keep guard for Jian Chen. Protector Xueqi, you can't change matters that I've decided on. I know you're thinking about me and that you want me to become even stronger, but it's been tough on my brother in the years he's spent outside. He may no longer be weaker than me now, but I know that he has risked his life to obtain his current powers. When he was suffering outside and being chased around the world by others, I did nothing as a sister. I was unable to help him, but I have the power now. I have to help him this time no matter what. This is my responsibility as a sister. Chongyang Mingyue uttered inside as she sat outside the room with her eyes closed. Protector Xueqi, you won't be able to take the ice soul from my brother with me here. Even if the day that my profound ice body has to be delayed indefinitely, I will stay here until my brother emerges. The room filled with coldness was hazy. Jian Chen sat on the ice as he held the ice soul in his hand. He stared at the ice soul with mixed emotions. He was unable to settle down for the moment. At this moment, a cool feeling radiated from the ice below. It entered Jian Chen's body and moved about. The cool feeling clearly was not as simple as a strand of coldness. Its appearance gradually ate away all of Jian Chen's mixed emotions and allowed him to brush aside his random thoughts. Sister. Jian Chen muttered inside before gathering his concentration. He began to cultivate with all his attention, absorbing the energy within the ice soul. Although the tremendous energy within the ice soul had been condensed from extreme coldness, the formation of each ice soul took 1,000,000 years. After such a long time, the energy within the ice soul had changed long ago. Not only was the coldness removed, making the energy in it gentle, but it was also extremely pure and powerful. When the first strand of energy was absorbed by Jian Chen's body, the thin strand immediately began to rapidly expand like a balloon, becoming 100 times its size and completely filling Jian Chen's dantian. In the end, his dantian was unable to contain all of the energy, leading to some leaking out into his body, making it swell. Jian Chen was delighted inside. He had estimated the value of the ice soul before, but to his surprise, the ice soul had far exceeded any of his estimations. I wonder if I can reach the 5th layer of the chaotic body with just this ice soul. Jian Chen became hasty as he immediately began to refine the energy in the ice soul. As the energy of the ice soul was endlessly absorbed by Jian Chen, the chaotic Niden in his dantian gradually grew larger. More and more chaotic force accumulated within it as he rapidly approached the 5th layer of the chaotic body. Jian Chen would have definitely consumed a lot of time to reach the fifth layer of the chaotic body if it was not for the ice soul. After all, the energy required to reach the fifth layer was just far too tremendous, far more than what he had needed to reach the fourth layer. Although he had a large amount of immortal tier heavenly resources he had obtained from the Shenhuang microcosm, he would develop an immunity to their effects if he consumed too many of them in a short time frame. The effects of the heavenly resources would be heavily reduced, so Jian Chen was unable to devour the heavenly resources to reach the fifth layer. After all, he did not have the white tiger's natural advantage, which enabled it to consume heavenly resources endlessly. The appearance of the ice soul, without a single doubt, was giving Jian Chen exactly what he needed when he needed it. The time he required to reach the fifth layer would be greatly reduced. Jian Chen absorbed the ice soul extremely quickly. The fist-sized ice soul had vanished in just 2 months, having all been refined into chaotic force. Unfortunately, Jian Chen still had not reached the fifth layer after absorbing the ice soul with his chaotic body. He was only an inch away from the fifth layer. The chaotic Niden in his dantian had become the size of a fist. He had reached the peak of the fourth layer, the limit of what he could achieve right now. If he could take one step further, he would immediately reach the fifth layer. Jian Chen fell silent as he observed his chaotic Niden within him. He then clenched his teeth, and with a flip of his hand, he immediately took out an energy crystal from a Shenhuang beast. As soon as the energy crystal had appeared, a terrifying pulse of energy was emitted, filling the entire room. At the same time, Protector Xueqi, who sat on her bed in another area of the divine hall, sensed something. She slowly opened her eyes and glanced where Jian Chen was cultivating. Her gaze was deep, as if she could directly see Jian Chen beyond the various walls of ice in the room. However, Protector Xueqi retracted her gaze as if nothing had happened, slowly closing her eyes again. The Ice Goddess Hall is in danger right now. There are many things I don't care about and won't care about, but I hope that Jian Chen really will behave how Mo Tianyun has described him in the future, where he will assist the Ice Goddess Hall in getting through this disaster, thought Protector Xueqi. Chapter 1433. The fifth layer of the chaotic body 2. I hope this energy crystal can help me reach the fifth layer of the chaotic body successfully, Jian Chen murmured to himself as he gazed at the energy crystal in his hand. This was one of the 2 Class 10 Shenhuang Beast energy crystals he had obtained back in the Shenhuang microcosm. Back then, I was too weak and lacked an understanding of the origin realm, so it was difficult for me to distinguish energy crystals beyond the 9th class. Now that I look at it, this energy crystal is nowhere near the 10th class. It's at least a Class 11 or even a Class 12 crystal, and this was also the weaker energy crystal out of the 2 I obtained. The other energy crystal must have reached the 13th class at the very least. Jian Chen gently rubbed the energy crystal with his thumb. His eyes grew brighter and brighter as they became filled with his eagerness. If it were not for the ice soul, Jian Chen would not have chosen to absorb one of the 2 most powerful energy crystals he had ever obtained, because he was not confident that one would be enough for him to break through. The energy crystal was of an extremely high quality, but it was akin to monster cores after all. The benefits it could bring were nothing like the ice soul or the high-grade violet cloud peaches, so even if he absorbed it, he would not break through. However, he had now reached the peak of the 4th layer with the ice soul. This was the best moment for him to make a breakthrough. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed himself. He immediately gathered his concentration and devoted himself to refining the energy crystal in his hand. He planned to reach the 5th layer in a single stroke. The 5th layer of the chaotic body was extremely significant to Jian Chen. Not only would it drastically increase his strength, but it would give him the ability to refine the Yin-Yang Saint Rock. 7 days later, a loud crack finally rang out. Jian Chen was filled with eagerness. A ball of extremely terrifying chaotic force filled his body, and at that moment, his body suddenly began to swell. He became a giant, as if he had been blown up like a balloon. Every breakthrough of the chaotic body would be equivalent to the chaotic Niden shattering, and each shattering would bring tremendous pain. The muscles on Jian Chen's face twitched as his forehead became covered with cold sweat in a single moment. His face had already paled. Even though his chaotic Niden had already shattered several times before, he still found the ripping pain unbearable. However, Jian Chen was willing to accept a great increase in strength for bearing with the intense pain. Vast amounts of chaotic force rampaged through Jian Chen's body before slowly being compressed. Virtually at every moment, the chaotic force within Jian Chen's body shrank, undergoing a process of compression, slowly changing his 4th layer chaotic force to the 5th layer. At the same time, Jian Chen's body endured the battering of the strengthened chaotic force. His flesh also toughened at a visible rate, becoming even more powerful. This process lasted for several days and Jian Chen finally reached the 5th layer of the chaotic body. Both the toughness of his body and his chaotic force had increased in quality. The chaotic Niden in his dantian had been reduced to the size of a soybean once again. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes. He sensed the strengthened chaotic force in his chaotic Niden and could not help but smile. He was filled with joy. The energy crystal in his hand had not been fully absorbed. He had only used a third of the energy present. My chaotic Niden is too small right now. The chaotic force stored inside is limited. Although the chaotic force will be consumed very slowly, the next wave of invasions from the world of Forsaken Saints should not be too far off. At that time, the battle will definitely be even more intense and even more difficult, Jian Chen pondered. He chose to continue his secluded cultivation, and continued to refine the energy crystal in his hand. A few more days passed and the energy crystal in Jian Chen's hands finally disappeared. However, he now needed several times or even more than 10 times the amount of energy now that he had reached the 5th layer, so the amount of chaotic force he managed to refine from the remaining 2/3 of the energy crystal was extremely limited. It had only increased his chaotic Niden to the size of 1.5 soybeans. Sigh. The further I progress, the more energy I require. When my chaotic body was still at the 4th layer, a single eye soul was enough to make me reach the peak of the 4th layer. I probably need 10 of them to reach the peak of the 5th layer. If I want to reach the 6th layer, probably even 100 won't be enough. Jian Chen sighed inside. The chaotic body really was very powerful, but there was endless pangs of pain behind its strength. However, I have truly become a Saint Emperor now. I have the battle prowess of a Saint Emperor without my comprehension of the way of the sword and without the azulate swords. If I use the way of the sword, there should be no Saint Emperors that can hold their ground against me. If I use the azulate swords as well, Jian Chen wondered. Only a while later did he think, I should be able to battle against the clone of the Spirit King. However, his comprehension of the way of the sword is greater than mine. The Spirit King. Jian Chen felt very pressured as soon as he thought about the Spirit King, because he was just too powerful. He had sent just a single clone, yet it required Xiao Ling, the sea goddess, and him to work together to fend off. If he had come personally, even all the power this world possessed would not be enough to stop him. Although the world had gained 2 Origin Realm experts, Yonglai and Guihai Yi Dao, while the 8 other founding ancestors of the Still Not Awakened, Jian Chen understood that their strength had fallen from the Origin Realm to Saint Emperor after all. Even with the assistance of their Saint artifacts, they were receival experts at most. The disparity against the Spirit King was just far too great, so they would not be much help in an actual battle against him. This was unless they recovered their peak strength and reached the Origin Realm again. And even if they returned to the Origin Realm in terms of strength, there were other Origin Realm experts in the world of Forsaken Saints aside from the Spirit King, and they outnumbered Jian Chen's world by quite a lot. I can now absorb the Yin and Yang Qi from the Yin Yang Saint Rock, but I need the assistance of the Heavenly Enchantress. Say. Jian Chen's head ached. He became filled with helplessness as soon as he recalled the Heavenly Enchantress. He gently shook his head and opened the room's door. As soon as the door was opened, Jian Chen saw his sister seated there. He evidently became stunned. Chongyang Mingyue sensed his emergence as well and stood up. She looked at him and became surprised. She said, "Brother, you've absorbed the 10,000-year-old ice soul so quickly? Are you sure you haven't hidden it away in your space ring?" Chongyang Mingyue suddenly became stern. She said seriously, "Brother, you have to listen to me. You have to absorb the entirety of the ice soul, or I won't let you leave here." Chapter 1434. The truth behind the seal. Sister, how is it possible for me to not listen to you? You got me to fully absorb the ice soul, so why wouldn't I listen to you? I've already fully absorbed the ice soul you gave me. Jian Chen smiled helplessly. He possessed the chaotic body, so the rate he could refine energy was incomparable to ordinary cultivators. In this period of seclusion, not only had he fully absorbed the ice soul, he had even refined an origin realm Xianhuang beast's energy crystal. Really? Have you really absorbed the ice soul so quickly? According to Protector Xueqi, even I need at least several years to fully absorb an ice soul. How did you do it in a few short months? Chongyang Mingyue suspiciously questioned him. However, she seemed to think of something very soon. She appeared enlightened as she said to herself, I understand now. It must be because of brother's extraordinary talent, which is why you could absorb the ice soul in such a short time. This also explains why brother's strength has been increasing so rapidly. Jian Chen smiled but did not give a detailed explanation. He said, Sister, I've stayed here for long enough. I plan on returning today. As time goes on, the next wave of invasions from the foreign world grows near. I must return to the Tianyuan continent to make preparations, but I want to see Protector Xueqi before I leave. I have a few questions I want to ask her. Chongyang Mingyue also understood the precarious situation of the current Tianyuan continent, so she did not urge Jian Chen to stay. She said, Brother, once my profound ice body matures, I'll come to the Tianyuan continent to look for you. We can fend off the invasion of the foreign world together. Let's go. I'll take you to see Protector Xueqi. Her strength is unfathomable where even I can't sense how great it is. If there's anything you're unsure about, feel free to ask her. Jian Chen obviously met Protector Xueqi without any obstructions under Chongyang Mingyue's personal guidance. Very soon, he saw her again in the same room of ice. Speak, what do you have to ask this king? I can answer some things you should know seeing how Her Majesty is your sister. After bowing to Chongyang Mingyue, Protector Xueqi turned her icy cold gaze toward Jian Chen. Jian Chen bowed to Protector Xueqi and got straight to the point. Senior, our world's currently sealed, preventing the cultivators of this world from reaching the origin realm. It's also lead to no origin realm experts for the four races since ancient times. May I ask if this seal was cast down by Senior? The world may be sealed, preventing everyone from reaching the origin realm aside from species with powerful bloodlines and natural spirits of the world. However, you walk a different path, where you don't need origin energy to reach the origin realm. As a result, the seal cannot stop you. Since it's no problem to you, why are you sticking your nose into matters that you don't need to care about? You cannot interfere with these matters, Protector Xueqi coldly responded. But this matter is connected to my great-grandfather. He's currently at the peak of Saint Emperor and is unable to reach the origin realm because of the existence of this seal. His lifespan is limited to 10,000 years. This is how it's connected to me. And, the Tianyuan continent is currently facing the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints. If we do not increase the number of origin realm experts we have, we will not be able to stop them. Senior, please release the seal in consideration of all the life in this world so that they have a chance of reaching the origin realm, Jian Chen sincerely said, almost like he was pleading. In his eyes, Protector Xueqi's strength was unfathomable. It was extremely likely that she had already reached godhood, so if she did not remove the seal, Yang Lai and the others would never be able to reach the origin realm. Although he believed that he would possess the power to break through the seal in 10,000 years, there were quite a few origin realm experts in the foreign world. No one knew whether Yang Lai and the others would survive the coming battles. After all, they had fallen from the origin realm to Saint Emperor, and were only able to display the strength of the origin realm through their saint artifacts. However, that was only the strength of the weakest origin realm experts. Once they came across true origin realm experts, it would be very difficult for them to stop them. Leave. I am unable to remove this seal, Protector Xueqi said coldly. Jian Chen became bitter. He had known long ago that the outcome would be like this, but he still felt extremely depressed. Once the seal was removed, Yang Lai and Gue Hai Yi Dao would still be able to reach the origin realm even without origin energy, because they had stored some origin energy in their saint artifacts. If the seal was not removed, Yang Lai and Gue Hai Yi Dao would still not be able to break through even with their origin energy. Protector Xueqi, I order you to remove the seal immediately, Chongyang Mingyue said with an irrefutable tone. Protector Xueqi dared not to behave as indifferent as she was with Jian Chen. She gently sighed as a sliver of helplessness appeared in her cold eyes. She said, "Your Majesty, I really do not have the ability to remove the seal. I may not have cast the seal, but I know who did. It was cast by Her Majesty. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for the matters here to avoid the divination of the experts from the saints' world. Otherwise, quite a few people from the saints' world would have come looking for Your Majesty." Jian Chen was disappointed when he heard that. He had never thought that the seal was actually cast down by the Ice Goddess. The Ice Goddess was a Grand Prime, a supreme expert who stood at the apex of the higher world. Even after 10,000 years, he might not be able to gain the strength to break through a seal cast down by someone so strong. At the same time, he worried about his sister. Jian Chen left the Ice Goddess Hall. Although he had not managed to get the seal removed, he had learned exactly who had cast it down as well as who was responsible for the missing history from the ancient era. It was definitely Protector Xueqi's handiwork, and her intentions were to prevent anyone from entering the saints' world and exposing what was happening here, which would have endangered his sister. Although the method was shocking and extremely brutal, Jian Chen was unable to determine whether Protector Xueqi was right or wrong. If it was himself, what would he have done to protect the people most important to him? Jian Chen left the icy tundra and returned to the Tianyuan continent on his sword. However, Jian Chen suddenly came to a halt at this moment. He gazed into the distance as his eyes shone. He was gazing in the direction of the wasteland continent. Even though the wasteland continent was extremely far away, Jian Chen could still sense an extremely tremendous pulse in that direction. There's more than 10 members of the 100 races that have reached Saint Emperor, and several dozen are reaching Saint King at the same time, Jian Chen murmured. He knew that it must have been Tai Ta using the violet cloud peaches to increase the strength of the strongest experts of the 100 races, which was why so many people had broken through. Tai Ta's already begun to move. "I can't fall behind either," Jian Chen said before speeding up. He disappeared into the horizon as a violet streak of light. Chapter 1435. Acquaintances of the past. Jian Chen returned to the Tianyuan continent and descended in the Chongyang clan of Lore City. The Chongyang clan announced something that shook up the entire continent, causing a great commotion everywhere. All 6th cycle Heaven Saint Masters would experience the chance to become a saint ruler if they gathered outside Lore City in 3 days' time. All saint rulers who had comprehended saint tier battle skills or were at the 7th heavenly layer or above would have the chance to become a saint king if they gathered outside Lore City in 3 days' time. All saint kings at the 8th heavenly layer or above would have the chance of becoming a saint emperor if they gathered outside Lore City in 3 days' time. These 3 pieces of information spread across the entire continent like wildfire soon after the Chongyang clan announced them. All the hermit and ancient clans who had isolated themselves from the world received the news. Even the mysterious experts who remained hidden within the wilderness all year round to cultivate received the news from their friends as well. They were all astounded and could not calm down even after a very long time. The current world lacked origin energy, making it impossible for Saint Emperors to reach the origin realm and extremely difficult for Saint Kings to reach Saint Emperor. There were countless experts who had devoted their lives to cultivation only to stop at Saint King. On the continent, Saint Emperors had almost stopped appearing entirely. Only the Path Lord of Carnal Desires managed to become a Saint Emperor through the creation of his 7 emotions and 6 desires, becoming the only supreme expert for quite some time. In the eyes of all the Saint Kings on the Tianyuan continent, the path to Saint Emperor had fallen apart long ago. Even those who had reached great perfection and were only an inch away from Saint Emperor could not avoid the miserable ending of being reduced to a pile of bones. Yet now, the Chongyang clan of Lore City had claimed that they would give Saint Kings a chance to become Saint Emperors. This matter immediately exploded among the Saint Kings, throwing countless people into an uproar. No one doubted the abilities of the Chongyang clan because they were the clan the human sovereign Jian Chen belonged to. Several months ago, a few new Saint Emperors appeared on the Tianyuan continent, and they all possessed close ties to Jian Chen. Everyone knew that the reason why these people could skyrocket in strength and all become Saint Emperors was all because of Jian Chen's assistance. Some Saint Kings who fulfilled the requirements even ripped open space gates to hurry to the Chongyang clan the moment they received the news. A few Saint Rulers and Heaven Saint Masters who fulfilled the requirements did not hesitate either. They all ventured to the cities, sects or clans with space gates as soon as they heard the news and paid a large price so that they could make it to Lore City in the shortest amount of time possible. The moment the news spread from the Chongyang clan, 2 Saint Kings in the clan ripped open space gates and left excitedly. They went to the Sea Realm and the Beast God continent respectively. One of the Saint Kings was a magical beast while the other one was a member of the sea race. They had remained on the Tian Yuan continent to keep guard and had been summoned by Jian Chen. He got them to take a similar announcement with them. The two experts reported the news to Yadrium and Songqiong, greatly shocking the two Saint Emperors. They immediately broadcasted this news across the entire Sea Realm and Beast God continent as well. The Sea Realm and Beast God continent were thrown into an uproar as well. The Saint Kings who fulfilled the requirements all surged with emotion. They could not remain where they were for a single moment longer, eagerly heading to the Tian Yuan continent. Not only did Jian Chen want to increase the overall strength of the humans on the Tian Yuan continent, but he had also invited the sea race and magical beasts to take part in this event as well. In just the first day since he had let out the news, over 10,000 people had gathered outside Lore City. All of them looked toward the small city in reverence. All these people had hurried over on the first day. Most of them were Heaven Saint Masters, with Saint Rulers making up an extremely small portion. There were even many Heaven Saint Masters and Saint Rulers who did not match the requirements present. They had come with the mindset to watch or to try their luck, hoping that they would be chosen if Jian Chen decided to make exceptions. All of them stood on the ground, including the Saint Rulers. No one dared to hover in the sky, and even when they communicated with one another, they purposefully stifled their voices. They did not cause a great disturbance, as if the city before them was holy. Even the Saint Rulers did not step into the city, staying outside in the wilderness. The Chongyang clan was currently filled with the Saint Kings of the three races. However, without any exceptions, all the Saint Kings had lowered their statuses and acted extremely modestly. There was a vague sense of reverence present. They did not even dare to offend a single servant of the clan. A palace-like hall stood within the Chongyang clan. It was grand and the most eye-catching piece of infrastructure in the clan. This hall was the place where Jian Chen stayed in the clan. Jian Chen always remained in there as he tidied the heavenly resources on him. He did not visit anyone. There were many Saint Kings who had wanted to see him to pay their respects, but they were all denied entry. His hall became a holy place in the eyes of all the Saint Kings. There were many Saint Kings who believed that all the people who managed to enter the hall would receive infinite glory. At this moment, a small group of Saint Kings courteously arrived before the hall where Jian Chen stayed. One of them said to the two female servants at the entrance, "Taido wishes to see ruler Jian Chen." After that, the entire group bowed to the hall. They all bore the respect they felt from the bottom of their hearts on their faces. A few Saint Kings in the surroundings secretly shook their heads when they saw their actions. They could already guess what would happen. "Esteemed guests, the young master is not seeing anyone." The two beautiful servants repeated something they had said countless times with smiles. Whenever they mentioned young master, there was evident admiration and adoration in their voices. It was close to a fanatical level. "Come in." However, Jian Chen's voice rang out from inside as soon as the two servants finished speaking. The Saint Kings in the surroundings immediately froze when they heard his voice, suddenly turning their heads to the group of Saint Kings standing at the entrance. Envy filled their eyes as well as a certain strangeness. There had been countless Saint Kings who had wanted to see Jian Chen, including many Saint Kings at great perfection. Without a single exception, they were all turned down at the entrance, yet this group had succeeded. The two servants at the entrance were stunned. Their opinions of this group of people immediately changed as well. If it was before, they would have been utterly frightened if Saint Rulers stood before them, let alone Saint Kings. They would even worry about breathing too loudly, but on this day, the two of them had discovered that Saint Kings only amounted to so much. The group of people entered the hall. As soon as they saw Jian Chen, who was sorting through the violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves, they all dropped to their knees and said, "We greet the ruler." They were the Saint Kings from the Turtle Clan as well as Tai Do, who had initially pledged his loyalty to Jian Chen. Jian Chen glanced over them and gently sighed. "You already know that I'm not the ruler of the Turtle Clan, so why must you kneel for me? Please get up." Chapter 1436. Powering Up Together. 1. Ruler, it doesn't matter whether you're a part of the Turtle Clan. You will always be the most respected and greatest ruler to the entire clan. The only reason why we are so glorious today is all because of Ruler, an elder of the clan said emotionally. He felt respect from the bottom of his heart for Jian Chen. "Ruler, my life belongs to you. It doesn't matter whether you're a human or a part of the sea race, Tai Do, will always treat you as my master. Tai Do dropped to his knees and said extremely seriously while he kept his head very low. Jian Chen's emotions became rather mixed as he looked at these people. With a flip of his hand, a Niden appeared. It slowly drifted before the elders of the clan under Jian Chen's control. The elders of the turtle clan immediately became fixated on the small Niden. They could sense an extremely dense turtle clan ruler's chi within it. I obtained this Niden before, and it was exactly because of this that I possessed the ruler's chi of the turtle clan. This belongs to your clan, so I am returning it right now, Jian Chen softly said as he sighed inside. It was because of this Niden that he had become connected to the turtle clan in the sea realm. At the same time, it was also the reason the Grand Elder had given up his life to save him. This Niden had added a lot of ups and downs to his journey in the sea realm. The elders of the turtle clan remained on their knees. None of them extended their hands to accept the Niden. Jian Chen said when he saw this, "My connection with the turtle clan was all brought on by this Niden. Now that the clan has returned to its former glory, I have completed the Grand Elder's final wish. I will not be going to the turtle clan very often from now on, so just treat the Niden as something I have left to the clan. After all, this Niden has accompanied me for quite some time in the past." The Saint Kings of the turtle clan all became very depressed. They carefully accepted the Niden with heavy emotions and a slight sense of devotedness, holding it in their hands like a treasure that they feared they would break. At that moment, the Niden had become a treasure that had surpassed all else in their eyes. This was because this was the item left to them by the greatest ruler in their history. It was something that had accompanied him for quite some time. The Niden was not worth a lot by itself, but it held significant value to the turtle clan. You all have consumed violet cloud peaches to reach Saint King before. The immortal peaches can only be consumed once every 100 years, so you won't be able to take part in this gathering this time, Jian Chen said to them. Ruler, we've come this time only to meet you personally. There was nothing else that we wanted, an elder politely replied. He felt no regrets at all. With their original strength, becoming a Saint King would have been an extremely distant dream to them. Some of them would not have been able to reach such a level of cultivation ever. The ruler had let them all become Saint Kings, so they were already extremely delighted. After all, Saint Kings were basically the limit of cultivation now that Saint Emperor was difficult to reach. The elders left. They did not stay in the Chongyang clan any longer and instead rushed back to the clan as they carefully carried Jian Chen's Niden. They held an extravagant ceremony involving the entire clan and constructed a sacred tower. The Niden was enshrined on the highest floor of the tower. Jian Chen met another acquaintance soon after the elders of the turtle clan had left. Qing Yishuan had arrived in the Chongyang clan in azure robes to meet Jian Chen. Qing Yishuan had already broken through to Saint Emperor when they met again. When she had consumed the violet cloud peach, a very limited amount of energy had leaked out. Even though it was just a first-grade immortal peach, it allowed her strength to increase drastically. Qing Yishuan sat on a seat opposite of Jian Chen. She was in melancholy mood. A sliver of loneliness was present in her eyes, along with some confusion. "You've avenged yourself?" Jian Chen asked. Qing Yishuan shook her head and gently sighed. Her expression was indescribably mixed as she softly said, "My former enemy has already died. He did not die by my hands, but was slain by a foreign expert in the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints. Even his corpse can't be found." Qing Yishuan continued in a rather depressed fashion. "Back when I was still a saint ruler, I was forced to flee to the sea realm due to my enemy. I hid there for 1,000 years, working hard on my cultivation day and night just so I could return a little sooner to take revenge. The heavenly resource you gave me recently allowed me to get through several minor levels of cultivation and break through to Saint Emperor. When I returned to the Tianyuan continent and went to the Yongji sect of the 10 protector clans, I found that they did not even have a single Saint King Great Elder left." When she reached there, Qing Yishuan suddenly smiled idiotically. She said to herself, "The heavens sure do have their own way of doing things. I never thought that the heavens would pull such a joke on me. I cultivated arduously in the past just so I could personally kill my enemy, yet he's already dead, even though I have the strength to kill him. He did not even die in my hands. If I had known that this would happen, was there still any need for me to cultivate so hard?" Qing Yishuan felt empty inside, as if she had lost all her objectives in life. "Your enemy's actually a part of the Yongji sect? What happened between you and them?" Jian Chen asked in surprise. "Yang Yun of the Yongji sect wiped out my clan, Qing Yishuan responded, feeling immense sorrow. Jian Chen fell silent. He just stared at her quietly. This is the Saint Tier battle skill I took from the treasury of the Tao family before. I don't need it anymore, so I'm returning it to you. Qing Yishuan left behind a tablet of stone before turning around and leaving. With her back toward him, she seemed rather lonely and pessimistic. Jian Chen watched Qing Yishuan leave before gently sighing. He put the stone tablet away with a wave of his hand. The flame mercenaries just happened to be in need of items like that. Experts constantly poured into Lore City within the 3 days. Not only had the city become the most renowned place on the continent, but even the Jesson Kingdom managed to profit from the fame. Even though its overall strength was not as great as the 8 great kingdoms, its status had completely superseded the 3 great empires. Jian Chen's uncle had returned to the Chongyang clan after so many years. He had always remained in an unknown forest, cultivating in seclusion after cutting himself off from the world for all those years. Only now had he finished refining all the shards of venerable Poison Sword's soul, so he had emerged as a result. He had inherited the Saint King's comprehension of the mysteries of the world. However, since the shards were incomplete, he only managed to inherit a portion of the venerable Poison Sword's understanding. He did not manage to return to the Saint King's peak strength, only having reached the 5th heavenly layer. Tianmu Ling had come as well. Jun Moheo and Wang Yinhong stuck close to her, clearly loving her very dearly. Tianmu Ling managed to see Jian Chen without any obstructions at all. He learned that their Saint King ancestor had fallen, so Jun Moheo and Wang Yinhong were the most powerful in their clan now. Their status as an ancient clan was in danger. Jian Chen clearly understood what Tianmu Ling wanted to say. He guaranteed that Jun Moheo and Wang Yinhong would both become Saint Kings. The 3 days passed very quickly and Jian Chen tidied all the violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves. He stored them away neatly in his space ring. He had harvested a total of 4 first-grade violet cloud peach trees, 3 second-grade violet cloud peach trees, 2 third-grade violet cloud peach trees, 2 fourth-grade violet cloud peach trees, and 3 fifth-grade violet cloud peach trees. There were 108 peaches on each tree, so he had a total of 432 first-grade immortal peaches, 324 second-grade immortal peaches, 216 third-grade immortal peaches, 216 fourth-grade immortal peaches, and 324 fifth-grade immortal peaches. Aside from the 5th-grade violet cloud peaches that only had half remaining and peaches he had given to Tai Ta, the others were almost untouched. Chapter 1437. Powering Up Together, 2. There were fewer comprehension tea leaves compared to violet cloud peaches. Jian Chen had only harvested 3 first-grade comprehension tea trees and 1 fifth-grade comprehension tea tree. Each tree bore 81 leaves and he had already used up almost half of the 5th-grade comprehension tea leaves. The difference in the numbers is just far too great and basically all the Saint Kings of the humans, magical beasts, and sea race have gathered here. Although there were many of them who did not fulfill the standards, there are still over 100 people beyond the 8th heavenly layer. Just that would require over 100 violet cloud peaches and a few of them aren't in possession of talent like Qing Yishuan's, so they'll end up wasting quite a lot of the energy in the heavenly resource. I need to give them immortal peaches that are not of the 1st grade. Jian Chen murmured to himself as he frowned slightly. Other than that, there's several thousand saint rulers who reach the standards to become a saint king. If I just give them an immortal peach each, there won't be enough at all. There's even more heaven saint masters, over 10,000 of them. Looks like the heaven saint masters and saint rulers have to share an immortal peach between many people while the saint kings can consume an entire peach themselves. However, the people with great potential have to take priority. 3 days later, Jian Chen finally emerged from the hall under the eager gazes of many saint kings. He appeared before all of them. This was the day Jian Chen had promised to increase everyone's strength. All the saint kings of the 3 races had gathered before the hall. Jian Chen had stayed in as they stared at the tightly shut door with anticipation and eagerness. As soon as Jian Chen appeared before them, all their eyes lit up and they politely bowed to him. Greetings to Sovereign Jian Chen. Greetings to Sovereign Jian Chen. All the politeness from the saint kings originated from the bottom of their hearts. The world followed the rule of the jungle. They respected Jian Chen because of his strength. At the same time, Jian Chen had slain many foreign saint emperors in the battle before, protecting the continent. Just that was enough for many people to admire him. The group of senior members from the Chongyang clan stood nearby. They all watched this unfold with smiles. Bai Yuntian and Chongyangba had even teared up in joy. This was all because the person that the Saint Kings greeted was their child. Jian Chen's elder brother, Chongyangku, was in the crowd as well. He stared silently at this scene with mixed emotions. He was filled with envy, but his gaze bore some gloominess and dejection. Out of the 4 siblings of the Chongyang clan, their eldest brother had been chosen by the Pure Heart Pavilion and had been taken there. Their sister had become the saintess of the mysterious ice goddess Hall, so she possessed an extraordinary status, while their youngest brother had become the greatest human expert now. He was an existence that had surpassed Saint Emperor and deserved the respect of all Saint Kings. Only he remained nameless. Even though his strength had been propelled to Saint Ruler by the violet cloud peaches, he still felt the same as before. Even if he had become a Saint Ruler, he was still a nameless figure. Bai Dao also stared at Jian Chen in the crowd. He smiled with great pride. Uncle Chong, Chongyang Zhu Yunshao, Chongyang Zhu Yeyun, Chongyang Zhu Shao, and the others were all the same as they stared at Jian Chen quietly. Jian Chen looked around and clasped his hands at everyone. He greeted a few Saint Kings before directly proceeding to the main topic. Everyone, you must already know that I have some heavenly resources that can rapidly increase your strength. I used these exact heavenly resources a few days ago to allow some of my friends and family to reach Saint King. The only unfortunate thing is that I don't have many of these heavenly resources left. However, the invasion of the world of Forsaken Saints is at our doorstep, so in order to strengthen all of us I am willing to share these heavenly resources with everyone and assist you in your breakthroughs. Sovereign Jian Chen is such a selfless person. If we possessed these heavenly resources, we would have tried keeping them just for ourselves, yet Sovereign Jian Chen is willing to give them to us. His selflessness is admiring. Sovereign Jian Chen, I may be a magical beast, but if I become a Saint Emperor, I am willing to join the Chongyang clan and become its guardian if I survive the battle against the foreign world. Sovereign Jian Chen, if you can make me become a Saint Emperor, I'll serve you until my dying breath and never betray you. The blood of many Saint Kings began to boil. Their old faces became flushed as they loudly swore oaths. They were unable to keep their composure. Although many of them had reached the 8th heavenly layer, they did not have much longer to live, and they also knew that they had no chance of becoming a Saint Emperor. However, they all saw a sliver of hope from what Jian Chen had just said. Once they became Saint Emperors, not only would their strength undergo an overwhelming change, their lifespan would increase by 4,000 years as well. More importantly, there was a greater chance for them to survive the upcoming battle as Saint Emperors. As a result, there were even a few of them willing to cast away the last portion of their lives just to become Saint Emperors. The behavior of some of them seemed to be dim-witted, but they were all very clever. They knew that there would still be a very long road after Saint Emperor. Strength was still distinguished between the strong and the weak even in the Origin Realm. If they could successfully follow an Origin Realm expert with infinite potential, they would be able to obtain unknown benefits throughout their future cultivation. Jian Chen began to divide the violet cloud peaches. As even the weakest of the Saint Kings had reached the 8th heavenly layer, he had given them all 2nd and 3rd grade immortal peaches since they were not too far off from Saint Emperor. Jian Chen used 31st grade comprehension tea leaves together to make a cauldron of tea, sharing it evenly among the people. Afterward, Jian Chen personally brought them to an ancient forest for them to break through. Several days later, a large swathe of 9-colored rainbow clouds enveloped the entire continent. The clouds were extremely thick, formed from over 100 layers of rainbow clouds overlapping with one another. They shone with dazzling light as they flickered brightly. With the assistance of the immortal peaches, over 100 Saint Kings from the 3 races all successfully reached Saint Emperor. They became an extremely powerful force on the Tian Yuan continent. At the same time, in a miniature world someplace on the continent, the rather pale Path Lord of Carnal Desires sat in a room to recover. He was naked while several other young naked women lay dead in a corner of the room with blood splattered across their bodies. Suddenly, the Path Lord opened his eyes, and they immediately glowed brighter. He seemed to be able to pierce through space with his gaze and see the outside world. Over 100 Saint Emperors, the Path Lord of Carnal Desire said with a deep voice as shock filled his eyes. Soon after that, his face sank. When I broke through to Saint Emperor, it was almost impossible. I used my entire life to create the path of 6 emotions and 7 desires before I finally became a Saint Emperor, becoming the only Saint Emperor among the humans. Yet now, these people have all easily gotten through the bottleneck that I poured my soul out for, all with Jian Chen's help. Jian Chen, I curse you a horrible death. The Path Lord gritted his teeth. His sickly face had already become warped from intense envy and a sense of unfairness. Why? Just why did his breakthrough have to be so difficult while these people had it so easily? How was it fair that these people could just cultivate for a few days and reach what he had used several millennia to attain? Chapter 1438. Severance of Emotions and Desires. Why? Just why did I need to waste several thousand years to become a saint emperor while they only need a few days to become one? Even those 8th heavenly layer saint kings have broken through in a few short days, making it through the 9th heavenly layer and great perfection permanently. Back then, I used my comprehension of the cultivation method for the Pure Heart Pavilion and poured my soul out in order to create a different cultivation method, allowing me to become the only human saint emperor. Yet now, there's suddenly over 100 of them and they've broken through so easily. Why? Just why does it have to be so difficult for me and so easy for them? This is unfair. I cannot accept this. The Path Lord sat in a room and roared out. His face had already become warped and, coupled with his sickly appearance, he seemed extremely vicious. Jian Chen, it's you. It's all because of you. Sure, you cultivate fast, but do you really have to make all these people, who are not related to you at all, become saint emperors and make my cultivation, which I spent thousands of years on, not worth a single cent? You're purposefully directing this at me. The Path Lord gritted his teeth. He was filled with hatred. He blamed Jian Chen for everything. Originally, the Path Lord had been the only saint emperor on the Tianyuan continent, the only human saint emperor, who even the ancient protector clans didn't easily offend. His name could shake the entire continent, and he was known as the greatest human expert both in name and reality. However, after Jian Chen appeared, everything changed. Not only had Jian Chen taken his status as the greatest human expert, but Jian Chen also received the admiration of everyone. Even worse, Jian Chen was helping many people reach Saint Emperor, allowing the Tianyuan continent to gain several dozen Saint Emperors. The Path Lord's status, which was once the greatest, only dropped lower and lower with each coming day. I want to break through. I want to break through Saint Emperor and become an Origin Realm sovereign. Today, I'll completely sever my 7 emotions and 6 desires and complete the cultivation path I have created. Madness filled the Path Lord's eyes. Raising his hand, a powerful force gushed out and smashed through the stone door of the room. He left. This was a miniature world carved out by the Path Lord himself. Not a lot of people lived in it, only a few thousand. Other than the several dozen wives of the Path Lord and his 100 or so children, the others all belonged to the sect that the Path Lord had created. They were the disciples of the Carnal Desires sect. The Carnal Desires sect had been founded by the Path Lord several thousand years ago. All of them cultivated in the miniature world and rarely left, which was why they were not very well known on the Tianyuan continent. Many people did not even know that a sect like this existed. The place where the Path Lord cultivated was near the sect. As soon as he emerged, 2 middle-aged men heard the commotion and flew over from afar. They bowed to the Path Lord and politely said, "Greetings to the Path Lord." The 2 men were both saint rulers. They were the only 2 saint rulers in the Carnal Desire sect and the strongest experts aside from the Path Lord. They all practiced the cultivation method that the Path Lord had created. The Path Lord was emotionless. His eyes were filled with a cold ruthlessness. His looked at the 2 men like he was looking at 2 corpses. The Path Lord silently appeared before the 2 of them. He raised his hands and pressed them against their heads, and with a bang, their heads immediately exploded. Their souls were wiped out as well. They were mercilessly slain by the Path Lord. The Path Lord's expression did not change at all. He stared at the sect in the distance and walked through the empty air. He steadily made his way over. There were several thousand disciples in the Carnal Desires sect. Although they practiced the cultivation method that the Path Lord had invented, it was not suitable for everyone since it deviated from the beaten track. As a result, the sect had never produced a saint king in the several thousand years it had existed, even though they all practiced a cultivation method created by a talented saint emperor. The strongest of them had only reached saint ruler. The Path Lord entered the sect. As he looked at the familiar buildings, he murmured, "The 7 emotions are composed of joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, hatred, and desire, while the 6 desires are life, death, sight, hearing, taste, and smell. I have already understood the 7 emotions and 6 desire and have created the palms of emotions and desires. It's just that I still haven't severed the last few aspects of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. It's not that I can't sever them, but I didn't want to sever them because it wasn't the right time. Or maybe it's because I never had the willpower to sever them. But now, this is my final choice. I have to sever them and let my strength increase, surpassing Saint Emperor. The Path Lord silently disappeared from the main entrance of the sect, and soon cries of fear and disbelief rang out. Path Lord, what are you doing? Wu Lin is innocent. He's never done anything against the sect, so why did you kill him? Spare me, Path Lord, spare me, Path Lord, why are you killing us? Everyone run, the Path Lord's gone mad. The Path Lord is slaughtering everyone like crazy. The Path Lord's ruthless massacre was targeted at the disciples of the Carnal Desires sect. All the disciples he came across either had their heads blown up or necks snapped. No one could escape the claws of the Path Lord. Gradually, the ground became dyed with red and the metallic smell of blood grew heavier and heavier. More and more corpses collapsed on the ground. The cries for help alerted the entire sect. Very soon, all the disciples learned that the Path Lord had gone mad. They immediately fled in fear, but the sect had been surrounded by a powerful barrier long ago. In the end, not a single disciple managed to make it out. All of them launched useless attacks at the barrier out of despair. The Path Lord was covered in blood, all from the disciples he had slain in his own sect. With the Path Lord's strength, he could have annihilated the entire place with a wave of his hand, but he did not do that. He took action personally, sending disciple after disciple into the afterlife. The Path Lord had not gone mad. His eyes were clear and filled with resolution. He would comprehend the slaughter of each person closely as he underwent the final severing process. There were many methods to sever the emotions and desires, and there was no need to sacrifice the lives of others to complete his cultivation method. However, the Path Lord just happened to choose the most brutal method. The sect was strewn with corpses, without a living disciple. All of them had been personally slain by the Path Lord. He then gazed into the depths of the miniature world after personally destroying the sect he had founded. A beautiful hall stood there. It was the Path Lord's residence, where his several dozen wives and close to 100 daughters and sons resided. The Path Lord made his way to the residence in the depths of the miniature world. He entered every room and mercilessly sent his past lovers, daughters, and sons into the afterlife. He had become a ruthless person. The residence was filled with cries of shock and fear. Many people in the residence had learned that the Path Lord had gone mad. They tried to flee, flying in all directions, but they could not leave the miniature world no matter where they fled. In the end, even the servants within the hall were slain, totaling several hundred people. Neither his wives nor children were spared. The youngest was not even 10 years old. The Path Lord's gaze became cold after ending the lives of everyone. There seemed to be nothing in his eyes, yet they were also filled with everything in the world. He seemed connected to the world. In a flash, he arrived in a mausoleum. There were several dozen tombs that held the family of the Path Lord. They were either his past lovers or his children, having almost all departed for the afterlife because of old age. The Path Lord coldly stared at the mausoleum and did not feel any reluctance at all. He raised his hand and pressed down. Immediately, an extremely large hand appeared out of nowhere and slammed into the mausoleum. With a heavy boom, all the structures vanished. They were replaced by a dark, hand-shaped pit that was several hundred meters deep. The last step is to sever life and death. The Path Lord sat in the air as he mumbled to himself without any emotions. Living is life, and the 7 desires and 6 emotions come from life. Aside from life and death, I have severed them all, so this life no longer exists either. I only have death now. Sever life and death by completely cutting away the impurities and only leaving behind the initial source, returning to my true self. I will use my palms of desires and emotions to completely eliminate all impurities in my soul, and sever any impure thoughts that are left in me. The Path Lord raised his hand. An invisible blade had already condensed in his hand. He then stabbed it into his soul. The blade was condensed from his palms of desires and emotions. It did not harm his physical body because it only targeted his soul. The blade entered his soul with a flash, and after severing a hazy bright part of his soul immediately shrank by a huge portion. It became extremely weak. The Path Lord violently trembled. It was extremely painful for him as the blade fell. His soul was heavily injured. However, his soul became even more translucent after he had taken the blade to it. All the impurities and random thoughts left in his soul had been severed the blade. Chapter 1439. Paving a path with hatred, the Path Lord immediately became empty inside when the blade fell. At that moment, he seemed to have entered a mental state where there were no emotions or desires. Everything in his gaze was clear. He could see through everything in the world. He had been liberated by letting go of his emotions and desires and abandoning life and death. The Path Lord seemed to have let go of all his past hatred for Jian Chen, as well as all the amenities he had accumulated in the past. In his current state, he felt indifferent toward breaking through the barrier of Saint Emperor and joining the Origin Realm. The Path Lord sat there and felt empty inside. In his current state, he felt like he was infinitely closer to the world and seemed to have reached conformity with the world, comprehending things unknowingly. He had truly become desireless and emotionless. However, he still retained a basic instinct after becoming so close to the world, which urged him to continue his comprehension. The Path Lord's strength silently increased. Although the saint force within him did not increase at all, his comprehension of the world constantly increased. His weakened soul gradually recovered as well. Not only had his soul surpassed his peak condition, but it continued to rise up and strengthen. I can sense that I am getting closer and closer to the Origin Realm, thought the Path Lord. He could sense the changes extremely clearly, but he did not feel any joy at all. After severing his emotions and desires, increases to his strength were unable to excite him. In fact, anything in the world, whether delightful or sorrowful, would no longer be enough to instill any emotion within him, including his own life or death. I met the Saint Emperors of the Beast God continent a few times in the past. Kaiser had once said that even if I severed my desires and emotions, I would still not be able to surpass Saint Emperor. How can he understand just how wondrous my path of cultivation is? The Origin Realm is already within my grasp, but even if I do reach it, why? For greater strength? Or for 100,000 more years of life? Where does my path lie after today? What will I pursue after today? Suddenly, a sliver of confusion appeared in the Path Lord's eyes. He had severed all his desires and emotions, including the aspirations of his life. He had walked this path too hurriedly and without appropriate preparations, so he faced the danger of losing himself. This was a bottleneck as well as a tribulation. If he could overcome it, he would immediately reach the Origin Realm, but if he could not, his path would end there, and he would be reduced to a living corpse. What is the purpose of my cultivation? What is the purpose of my existence? Why am I trying to reach the Origin Realm? Where does my path after today lie? The Path Lord became more and more confused. Although he had severed his emotions and desires like Chang Yonghu, making it seem like they were walking the same path on the surface, Chang Yonghu's path was one that truly conformed to the world. Everything he did was in accordance to nature and conformed to the truths of the world. The Path Lord's path deviated a little. The Path Lord would never have come across this confusion before the split. He would be able to find an answer instantly, but he had clearly rushed it too much by forcefully severing his emotions and desires using an extreme method to enter a desireless and emotionless state. The path ahead still had not been paved, so he immediately became confused when he reached the end of it. He was unsure where to go. This was because a severed path had appeared before him. This path was also his life as the Path Lord. Originally, he had been forced onto this path by Jian Chen and had also been urged by his emotions and desires to obtain greater strength and a longer lifespan. As a result, his path had been constructed from his emotions and desires. But after severing them, he became desireless and emotionless, so his original path was no longer suitable for him. The path ahead of him had reached a dead end. The Path Lord's strength continued to increase and his understanding of the world deepened. However, this understanding could not help him pave the severed path ahead of him. At this moment, he stood at the end of his path and gazed ahead in confusion. He did not know where else he could go. However, a mysterious and extremely powerful force appeared from outer space at this moment. It gushed into the Path Lord's miniature world with a destructive aura. The Path Lord sensed this force. He felt fear and shock for the first time because of the force. With his current strength, he actually felt like he was not even as great as an ant before the mysterious force. It could be said that the mysterious force from outer space was an ocean while he was a rowboat that floated in it. Only a very small wave would have been enough to annihilate him. The mysterious force did not devastate the Path Lord directly, but it instead interfered with the laws of the world. It helped him awaken from his desireless and emotionless state, preventing his comprehension and preventing his breakthrough. The Path Lord's face suddenly changed. He paled in a single instance and became haggard. His seated body swayed as if he was about to collapse. He had been forced out of the wondrous state of mind by the mysterious power, causing unimaginable damage to his soul. The strength he had just gained rapidly declined when he left that state of mind. His soul grew weaker and would soon disperse. This was like an unreturnable path. Once he embarked on it, the path behind him would disappear. He could only advance, and if he did not break through, his soul would disperse. My path collapses without my faith. I proceeded to hurry before and did not find my future path, so I did not reach the origin realm successfully. What I need to do right now is find the path leading to the origin realm, the Path Lord murmured to himself. His soul gradually weakened as every moment in his life flashed before his eyes. His desireless and emotionless state of mind gradually became blurred. When he thought of Jian Chen, when he thought about how he had been forced by Jian Chen to sever his emotions and desires without the proper preparations, impurities immediately began to litter his extremely fragile but pure soul. Suddenly, the Path Lord's eyes lit up. He gritted his teeth. Being desireless and emotionless no longer works. If I really have to reach that realm, then I have to abandon my hatred for Jian Chen, but the only reason why I am caught where I am right now, where I cannot go any further or go back, is all because of Jian Chen. This is unbearable, so I will pave my future path with my hatred for Jian Chen. Jian Chen, I shall build my path of hatred for you. It will lead me to the origin realm. The Path Lord's pure soul became more and more contaminated. Unknowingly, his path was already leading off in the exact opposite direction he had headed in initially. Chapter 1440. A severed path severing the emotions and desires would be freeing the body from everything that had held it down, allowing an unbound soul to break through. The Path Lord had completely failed when he tried to follow that path. He had severed his emotions and desires too hurriedly, and without taking the appropriate measures. He had completely failed to find the rest of his path. As he stood at the end, he lost his sense of direction for the future. He became confused and came across an obstruction on his path to the origin realm. However, there was no way back once he embarked on this path. His initial path no longer suited him, so he needed to abandon it. He couldn't continue on a broken path. He needed to pave a new path. He paved this path using his hatred of Jian Chen. Originally, the Path Lord would not have been able to feel any hatred with his pure soul since he had severed his emotions and desires. However, the mysterious force from outer space had forced him out of that mental state, greatly injuring his soul and making it extremely weak. Even the slightest stimulation would have pushed him over the edge. The Path Lord's eyes lost their clarity and were replaced with madness. Hatred burned within them as well. This hatred was so powerful that it was enough to annihilate his own soul. This burning hatred mixed with his soul. Jian Chen, the only reason why I'm like this now is all because of you. I want to surpass Saint Emperor. I want to surpass you and then torture you to death in the most brutal fashion possible. The Path Lord roared at the sky, causing the entire miniature world to tremble. His face had become viciously distorted. His hatred for Jian Chen was increasing at an unbelievable rate. His enmity for Jian Chen had not reached such an irreconcilable level before, but he had decided to use his hatred to pave a path to the origin realm. This led to the rapid increase of his hatred. The Path Lord of carnal desires was currently caught on the path between Saint Emperor and the origin realm. Because the path had not been completed and did not exist, he had not broken through, but everything would be extremely smooth as soon as he had found a new one. His strength was increasing at an unbelievable rate as he inched toward the origin realm. If this continued, he definitely would have been able to become an origin realm expert. However, the supreme force from outer space appeared once again as he moved along the path to the origin realm. It stopped him from breaking through. I want to surpass Saint Emperor. I want to surpass Jian Chen. I want to become the greatest expert on the Tian Yuan continent. No one can stop me. No matter who it is, no one can stop my advance to the origin realm. The Path Lord roared out as determination and madness filled his eyes. He did not pay any attention to the obstruction of the powerful force. He charged forward. He would not stop unless he reached his objective. The powerful force began to surge. It silently condensed into a completely invisible finger, which was gently pointed at the Path Lord. With this simple gesture, the entire world seemed to fall silent. Air seemed to stop flowing, time seemed to stop moving, and the entire world seemed to have frozen. The Path Lord froze as well. In the blink of an eye, his gaze became lifeless, but his body continued to surge with life, giving off terrifying pulses of energy. However, his soul had already vanished. He had turned into a soulless shell. The miniature world immediately fell silent. There were no more of the Path Lord's mad roars, no more of the liveliness from before. It had fallen into a dead silence. The mysterious force from outer space had completely vanished as well. In the Arctic Ice Goddess Hall, Protector Xueqi stared coldly into the distance. To no surprise, she stared in the direction of the Path Lord's miniature world. Her gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the spatial barriers, allowing her to see the Path Lord. Another person with impressive talent. What a pity. Protector Xueqi shook her head as she gently murmured to herself. However, her eyes remained cold, lacking any sympathy. At the same time, the sea goddess, Tai Ta, the heavenly enchantress, Jian Chen, Xiao Jin, Xiao Ling, Yang Lai, Gue Hai Yi Dao, Feng Xiaotian, and Fairy Hao Yu in the Bright Moon Divine Hall all looked in the direction of the Path Lord. This force has appeared again, murmured the sea goddess, before gently sighing. She knew that another expert had died. Tai Ta sat in the War God Hall as he gazed into the distance in interest. A sliver of suspicion filled his eyes. Xiao Ling and Xiao Jin looked in the direction of the Path Lord's miniature world and outer space in doubt, but they lost interest very soon. Jian Chen, Yang Lai, Gue Hai Yi Dao, and Feng Xiaotian were all stern. Aside from Jian Chen, they all ripped open space gates and immediately hurried over personally. Soon after the three of them had departed, Jian Chen glanced at the Saint Emperors who had just completed their breakthrough. After hesitating for a while, he said to newbies, Chongyang Zhu Xiao, and the other beside him, I will be leaving temporarily. I'll help the Saint Rulers and Heaven Saint Masters break through after I come back. Jian Chen rode off on the Ziying sword as a violet streak of light, moving extremely quickly. Fairy Hao Yu sat in the Bright Moon Divine Hall. Her eyes were fixated in the distance, but her face was nonchalant. The cold and aloof heavenly enchantress stood on the peak of Three Saint Mountain with her zither in her hands. Her beautiful eyes were filled with serious shock as she gazed in the direction of the Tianyuan continent. What a powerful pulse of energy! Who is it? The heavenly enchantress murmured. Her face was filled with surprise. Jian Chen arrived outside the Path Lord's miniature world on his sword. Finding the miniature world was nothing difficult with his current strength. He split open the entrance and stepped in, arriving beside the Path Lord in a few flashes. By the time he arrived, Yang Lai, Gue Hai Yi Dao, and Feng Xiaotian had already been there. They all stared at the Path Lord. Life roared within the Path Lord, but his soul was absent. They revealed extremely ugly expressions. He's already dead, Jian Chen said with a heavy voice. Although he had had some disagreements with the Path Lord in the past, he did not feel any delight from his death. Instead, he became very heavy-hearted. It's the seal. Not only has the seal stopped him from reaching the origin realm, it's wiped out his soul as well, leaving behind an untouched body, Yang Lai said with a heavy voice. His complexion was horrendous. The expert who cast down the seal is just too vicious. I originally thought that the existence of the seal was just to stop people from reaching the origin realm. I never thought that it could kill people, said Gue Hai Yi Dao. His complexion was horrendous as well. Feng Xiaotian stared at what was left of the Path Lord and shook his head. He sighed. He's actually able to reach such a level without origin energy. What a great seedling only to be destroyed like this. What a pity, what a pity. Chapter 1441. End of a grand gathering, let's go. Gue Hai Yi Dao gently sighed in dejection before leaving with Yang Lai and Feng Xiaotian. Other than Feng Xiaotian, who still remained rather at ease, Yang Lai's and Gue Hai Yi Dao's faces had both sunken. The outcome of the Path Lord was horrendous news for them. Jian Chen looked away from the Path Lord and glanced around the miniature world. He had already used his soul to envelope the entire place. Through his senses, he could clearly see that the carnal desire sect and the hall deep in the miniature world was filled with corpses. The ground had been dyed with blood while the heavy smell of blood lingered in the air. Jian Chen sighed gently and murmured, "The Path Lord personally killed the people here. Looks like he wanted to sever his emotions and desires and reach the origin realm, but he didn't know that this world had been sealed, making it impossible to reach the origin realm unfortunately." Jian Chen gently shook his head. He did not touch anything in the miniature world. He left with some sympathy. In the current world, it was even difficult to become a Saint Emperor. Even Jian Chen felt some admiration for the Path Lord, seeing how he could create his own cultivation method to reach Saint Emperor and attain such great achievements all by himself. This was because the Path Lord must have achieved everything he had owned through his own hard work. He did not have the support of any powerful organizations, unlike the magical beasts with the Beast God Hall, which made cultivating much easier. He did not even have what the Protector clans and Mercenary City possessed. Jian Chen returned to the Jizam Kingdom. At that moment, the Saint Emperors had all roused from their cultivation. They were all ecstatic as a terrifyingly tremendous pressure radiated from them. They had already consolidated their cultivation completely. All the Saint Emperors gratefully bowed to Jian Chen when they saw him. A few of the magical beasts immediately swore their loyalty to Jian Che, and said that they were willing to become guardians of the Chongyang clan in the future. I appreciate your good intentions, except the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints is still present. Our utmost priority is to make preparations in order to fend off the foreign world. Once we completely eliminate this threat, I will definitely welcome you with open arms if you still want to come join the Chongyang clan. Jian Chen faintly smiled and turned down the oaths of loyalty. If it was before, Jian Chen would have accepted several Class 9 magical beasts as guardians with great joy. But now, Saint Emperors were no longer as valuable to him as before. More importantly, he still did not know how many of these Saint Emperors would survive the battle against the foreign world. Jian Chen leaped onto the Ziying sword and left as a violet streak of light. He returned to Lore City. Currently, several hundreds of thousand people had already gathered outside the city. They were densely packed. All that was visible was a large crowd of heads. These people were not ordinary people. Every single one of them possessed impressive strength. Just the number of saint rulers had reached 10,000, while the number of heaven saint masters had reached over 100,000. Many heaven saint masters across the three races were just too far away and were unable to make it, or there would definitely have been many more people. Not all the saint rulers fulfilled the conditions required to have their strength increased. Instead, they had come with the intent of watching or trying to get lucky. However, even though that was the case, there were still over 1,000 saint rulers who fulfilled the requirements. Not only were there humans of the Tianyuan continent, but there were also magical beasts and members of the sea race. Jian Chen hovered high in the sky as he looked down. After he gave a general explanation of the requirements of increasing the people's strength, he pulled out a large pile of neatly stacked comprehension tea leaves from his space ring. Around a dozen large tanks had already been prepared in an empty space below. They were all filled with the spring water from the springs of life, carrying a green tinge. They gave off a tremendous force of life. Several saint kings sat around the tanks, personally guarding them. With a wave of his hand, Jian Chen threw a large handful of leaves into each tank, splitting them evenly. Afterward, he pulled out several hundred violet cloud peaches and cut them into pieces, delivering them to the hands of all the heaven saint masters and saint rulers who fulfilled the requirements. The violet cloud peaches were all the 1st to 3rd grade. Only a very small fraction were of the 4th grade. He did not use any 5th grade immortal peaches. I've already given you the chance. Whether you can successfully break through will depend on your luck, Jian Chen said 2 hours later after everyone had received a cup of tea and a piece of a violet cloud peach. He did not speak very loudly, but his voice was clearly heard by everyone. Is this piece of unknown fruit and this cup of tea our chance at breaking through? All the people thought as they stared at the tea and fruit in their hands. None of them doubted Jian Chen, because over 100 saint emperors breaking through was the best example available. They all consumed the piece of fruit and cup of tea with joy and eagerness. A day later, the first rainbow clouds finally appeared in the sky. Afterward, the number of rainbow clouds rapidly increased, layering on top of one another and forming an extremely thick 9-colored rainbow cloud. The clouds illuminated the entire sky with colorful light. The rainbow clouds lasted for several days before beginning to disperse. This time, not all of the heaven saint masters and saint rulers manages to break through. Only around 70% of them advanced. The violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves were immortal tier heavenly resources, but they had been split up so their medicinal effects suffered a great decrease. Coupled with the inferior talent of a few people, some failed to break through. Even though this was the case, the people who had failed to break through had all reached the peak of their current cultivation without any exceptions. The result was within Jian Chen's expectations. He hovered in the air and said, This is all I can do you for. Let's disperse. If you still haven't broken through, it shouldn't be too difficult to reach the next level of cultivation if you just go back and work hard on your cultivation. All the people below were filled with gratitude when they heard his words. They all bowed at Jian Chen politely before leaving. Even though a few of them had failed to break through, they would never forget the kindness that Jian Chen had shown them. Very soon, a large portion of the people outside the city had dispersed. Some had left in joy while others left with sighs. The people who had just come to watch had immediately become green with envy when they personally witnessed so many people reach Saint Ruler or Saint King. The grand gathering that had shaken up the humans, magical beasts, and sea race came to a close. However, the three races had finally recovered some of their power after the gathering. Not only had they fully made up for the lost Saint Kings, but they had gained over 100 Saint Emperors as well. This time, Jian Chen's generosity and kindness had won the sincere respect of all three races. Without any exaggeration, Jian Chen's prestige among the humans, the sea race, and the magical beasts had reached an unparalleled level. Chapter 1442. The heavenly enchantress Father Lore city of the Jesson Kingdom became as peaceful as it had been before. However, the current Lore city was no longer the same as before. It had become a sacred city on the continent, and this sacredness had even spread among the sea race and magical beasts. This was because the experts of the three races would never forget the great increase in strength they had experienced there. Not only had the name of the city been permanently engraved in the hearts of the people who had successfully broken through, but even the experts who had not fulfilled the requirements held some respect for the city. This was because several thousand Saint Kings and several tens of thousands of Saint Rulers had been born outside the ordinary city in just a few short days. As Lore City became renowned among the three races, the position of City Lord became a representation of status as well. Although the City Lord of Lore City was not an impressive expert, the position's status increased with the city's fame and became extremely special. However, the position as City Lord had been taken up by a member of the Chongyang clan long ago, and the king had given the city to the Chongyang clan quite some time ago as well. Although Lore City became as peaceful as it had been before the gathering, everyone felt that the population of the city had clearly increased. Countless unfamiliar people poured into the city daily, forming groups of 3s or 5s. They were quite powerful and spent extravagantly, clearly originating from large clans or organizations. However, without any exceptions, all these people of great statuses would immediately become obedient when they entered the city. They would temporarily stay there as if they were on a pilgrimage, gazing in the direction of the Chongyang clan from far away. Their eyes would be filled with respect and admiration. There were even many sea race, magical beast, and 100 races Saint Rulers and Saint Kings who settled there permanently. They all dismissed the violent temperaments they usually showed and become obedient law-abiding citizens of the city. Although the four races now gathered in Lore City and the city became a great mixture of powerful and weak organizations, with some that had enmity with others, there was no conflict at all to everyone's surprise. No one dared to make trouble in the city, let alone start fighting. After gaining the agreement from his three aunts, Jian Chen used valuable heavenly resources to purify their bodies and alter their talent in the Chongyang clan. They all embarked on a journey of cultivation, just so they could live longer. Bai Yun Tian chose to continue her path as a radiant saint master. The cultivation methods she practiced were valuable ones personally gifted to her by the president of the Radiant Saint Master Union. Coupled with the personal guidance from the president and grand elder whenever they visit the city, Bai Yuntian's cultivation increased extremely quickly. Jian Chen's uncle Bai Dao had consumed a 5th-grade violet cloud peach and reached Saint Emperor as well. However, since his strength mostly came from Venerable Poison's word, he continued to practice his supreme poison arts after becoming a Saint Emperor. He sparred with newbies many times to perfect them. The ancient Tianmu clan had gained 2 Saint Kings as well, making up for the death of their ancestor and their lack of a Saint King. However, Jun Moheo and Wang Yinhong had both consumed 1st-grade peaches because of Tianmu Ling, unlike the other Saint Rulers who had only gained a piece. This allowed their strength to increase drastically. They could not be compared to ordinary Saint Kings. As one of Jian Chen's few friends, Jian Chen had gifted a 4th-grade violet cloud peach to Tianmu Ling, allowing her to reach the 9th heavenly layer as a Saint Ruler. In the City of God within the Holy Empire, just the city itself took up a space equivalent to half of the Jesson Kingdom. The masters of the city, the Tsar family, were not in a great position. Of the 2 Saint King ancestors they possessed, Tsar Vamos had died in the battle against the foreign world, while their strongest ancestor, Tsar Kaiyun, had vanished completely. Without the protection of Saint Kings, the Tsar family's influence immediately plummeted in the city, and the Radiant Saint Master Union seemed to replace them. If it were not for the fact that the Radiant Saint Master Union had unintentionally started to lead the city, the masters of the city probably would have been replaced long ago. Even though that was the case, the many organizations and clans there all accepted the Radiant Saint Master Union as the masters of the city. At this moment, a violet streak of light suddenly appeared. It shot across the city of God with lightning-like speed and disappeared in the next moment. Jian Chen stood on the Ziying sword within the violet streak of light. He looked at the enormous prosperous city below as a sliver of reminiscence filled his eyes. He could not help but think of everything that had happened when he had come to this city as a Radiant Saint Master. Even though the city of God was vast, Jian Chen crossed it in just a few seconds. The city below him vanished soon after. After traveling another 10,000 kilometers, Jian Chen finally arrived in an ancient mountain range. On one of the mountain peaks stood a simple, lonely wooden hut. Jian Chen slowed down. After reaching a distance of 100 meters from the hut, he dropped like fallen leaf. He drifted away from the sword and landed before the door of the wooden hut. The Ziying sword flew over by itself and stuck tightly to his back. Almost the same time Jian Chen landed, a creak rang out and the door to the wooden hut opened. The white-robed Hao Wei walked out. He was haggard, worry and sorrow filled his face. He immediately became stunned when he saw Jian Chen. However, he responded quickly and immediately tried to bow to Jian Chen. Jian Chen stepped forward to stop Hao Wu. He said, "There's no need to be like this, Senior Hao Wu. I've come without warning, so I hope I haven't disturbed you. Sovereign Jian Chen is welcome at my humble abode. It's an honor, and I can't even express my joy, so how could it be described as a disturbance?" Hao Wu replied. Jian Chen's arrival came as a surprise to him. The two of them conversed a little before Jian Chen then asked in a straightforward manner, "Senior Hao Wu, I've come this time because I have something I want to ask you. How are you related to the Heavenly Enchantress?" Jian Chen had kept this question to himself for a very long time. He had already guessed the answer, but he needed to confirm it. After all, he had had a child with the Heavenly Enchantress. Hao Wu became gloomy as soon as he mentioned the Heavenly Enchantress. He gently sighed and said, "The person referred to as the Heavenly Enchantress on the Tianyuan continent is actually my daughter. Her name is Shangguan Mu'er." Jian Chen's opinion of Hao Wu immediately underwent some slight changes. He had guessed this already, but he had still just been guessing in the end. There was still a chance that he could have been wrong. Learning the actual truth was completely different than just guessing. Then what about Shangguan Mu'er's mother? Jian Chen continued with his questions. Hao Wu's face became filled with sorrow. He gently sighed. "When Mu'er turned 10, her mother passed away. Her death is directly connected to me. You can even say that I was the one who caused Mu'er's mother to die. It's all because I had far too many enemies back then, which caused this tragedy. Senior Hao Wu, I sense that your relationship with her doesn't seem great. She seemed to hate you very much. Is it because of what happened in the past?" Jian Chen asked. "Sovereign Jian Chen, may I know why you've suddenly come to me with these questions?" Hao Wu asked with a strange expression. Jian Chen hesitated for a while before responding. "Senior Jian Chen, to be honest, the Heavenly Enchantress and I were on good terms in the past. If I could help the two of you reconcile, it would obviously be for the best." Hao Wu's face lit up when he heard Jian Chen's reason. He said, "If that's the case, I'll tell you what happened before. Sovereign Jian Chen, I really do hope that you can help me out. I don't want Mu'er to hate me anymore." "I will definitely do everything I can," Jian Chen replied in a serious voice. Hao Wu eagerly nodded. After another period of silence, he said with some sorrow, "The death of Mu'er's mother is only one of the reasons why she hates me. The other is because I still can't forget about Kaiyun. I met Kaiyun even before her mother. Back then, if it were not for the objections of Tsayun's seniors, we would have married and I wouldn't have met Mu'er's mother. It's just a pity that I was just a mercenary back then, without any background, while Kaiyun was the treasured daughter of the Tsar family. The tremendous difference in our statuses became the obstacle that prevented me from being with Kaiyun. After that, I met Mu'er's mother. At that time, I was just a mercenary. I accepted a mission to escort the daughter of a large clan to a place several tens of thousand kilometers away. She was Muer's mother, Shangguan Xueyan. Shangguan Xueyan's clan, the Shangguan clan, had some enemies. As I escorted her, the party was attacked time and time again by those enemies. Along the way, all the guards died, leaving only me and Shangguan Xueyan. We fled together. Because of an accident, Shangguan Xueyan became pregnant with Muer. It was a complete accident. Back then, Shangguan Xueyan and I entered a zone of danger. We were both heavily poisoned and intoxicated, which led to the mistake. Afterward, I married Shangguan Xueyan with no other choice. We became partners. However, I always longed for Kai Yun, and Xueyan had learned about my story with her as well. Although I spent those years living with Xueyan, my mind was not present at all. Xueyan was never happy during the years we spent together, and her unhappiness was passed on to Muer in her youth. Not only had I failed to be a good husband back then, but I had failed to be a good father as well. I basically did not show any concern for the two of them at all. One day, my enemies suddenly came looking for me. I just happened to be out, and when I returned, the Shangguan clan had been wiped out because of me. Xueyan had collapsed in her own pool of blood. Muer only managed to avoid the disaster by hiding in a secret room. I was only a Heaven Saint Master back then, so I did not have the right to invite a Class 7 Radiant Saint Master to save Xueyan with Origin Energy, so she left me forever. My daughter always hated me because of that incident and has never accepted me as her father. Chapter 1443. Visiting the 100 Races. How Wu slowly narrated what he had gone through to Jian Chen. His face, weathered from all the storms of blood, was riddled with sorrow. Not only did his face express the anguish he felt because of his relationship with his daughter, but there was also grief for his dead wife. I have been filled with regret regarding the matters of the past. If I could return to the past, if the heavens gave me this opportunity, I would give up everything without any hesitation just so I could properly look after Xueyan and Muer, to show them love and make up for my mistakes back then, Hao Wu said painfully. Jian Chen stared at Hao Wu with mixed feelings. He understood why the heavenly enchantress and Hao Wu's relationship had become like this after learning about Hao Wu's past. Basically everything was because of Hao Wu's mistakes. After a period of silence, Jian Chen looked at the wooden hut behind Hao Wu. He said, "And what will you do regarding Czar Caiyun's matter?" "Kai Yun," Hao Wu murmured softly before looking at the wooden hut behind him. His face immediately became a mixture of emotions. Falling silent for quite some time, he seemed to have finally made a decision. He said, "Caiyun's become like this because of me. I don't want her to remain unconscious forever. I wish Kai Yun will wake up. If Muer can forgive me, then I'll leave Kai Yun once she does wake up and never see her again." Hao Wu's voice trembled quite a lot near the end. When he said those last words, his face was completely pale and his heart ached as if it was being stabbed by a needle. Jian Chen sighed inside. He knew that Hao Wu was deeply in love with Kai Yun, but even Jian Chen could not comment on this complicated situation. After a moment of silence, Jian Chen said, "Senior Hao Wu, please let me try to wake her up." Hao Wu's gloomy eyes lit up slightly. Czar Kai Yun had been unconscious for a very long time. He had tried everything, yet she still did not awaken. Even the president of the Radiant Saint Master Union could do nothing, throwing up both his hands. Hao Wu immediately saw some hope because of Jian Chen. Jian Chen entered the wooden hut. He saw Czar Kai Yun laying there silently. Life was present in her body while her breathing cycle was long and gentle. She did not have any injuries, but she was still unconscious. Her noble and beautiful face bore the traces of sorrow. She seemed rather pitiful. Kai Yun burned her soul in an attempt to die back then. I saved her, but her soul is extremely injured. Although I've given her various medicines that can heal the soul over the past few years, she still hasn't woken up. Maybe Caiyun's heart is already dead and she's sealed herself off, unwilling to wake up, Hao Wu said with pain evident in his voice. Jian Chen said after a moment of thought, "I have a great heavenly resources that specializes in healing the soul. It can help the soul in wondrous ways. I can try it and see if she wakes up or not." Injuries to the soul were the most difficult matters to deal with. Even Jian Chen did not have many methods to deal with them. All he could do was use a heavenly resource that targeted injuries to the soul. Jian Chen took out the amethyst spirit bamboo he had obtained from the Xianhuang microcosm and refined a droplet of amethyst sap. A unique fragrance immediately filled the hut. From a single breath, Hao Wu felt his mind clear up and become free. It was as if his soul had become more consolidated. Hao Wu was extremely shocked. He stared fixedly at the droplet of sap and his breathing became ragged. He knew for sure that this was a fantastic heavenly resource for healing the soul. He could not help but feel even more confident that Zar Kaiyun would wake up again. Jian Chen dropped the sap onto Zar Kaiyun's forehead. As soon as it came into contact with her, it silently dissolved, seeping into Zar Kaiyun's soul. Very soon, Zar Kaiyun's expression changed. The residual sorrow on her face gradually vanished, before being replaced by peace. Like a sleeping beauty, she lay there silently with her eyes closed. Jian Chen and Hao Wu stood before the bed as they stared at her. Using the amethyst spiritual bamboo was Jian Chen's only method of waking her up. If even that did not work, he would have nothing left to use. Hao Wu was extremely nervous. He knew how valuable the drop of sap was. With his experience and knowledge, he could tell with a single glance that it was an extremely valuable heavenly resources, something that belonged to legends of the continent. If even something from a legend was unable to wake her up, he would be out of ideas as well. Time passed quietly in silence. 2 hours. 4 hours. Half a day passed very quickly. Zar Kaiyun still did not show any signs of waking up. Kaiyun, you have to wake up. You have to wake up, Hao Wu murmured as he clenched Zar Kaiyun's hand. This was his last hope. A day later, Zar Kaiyun remained unconscious. Jian Chen could not help but sigh. He knew that the amethyst spiritual bamboo could not help her anymore. The injuries of her soul had already been healed by the drop of sap. Her current state had nothing to do with the injuries she had experienced anymore. Hao Wu was completely pale. Pain and despair filled his eyes. His final hope had vanished as well. Looks like only your daughter, the heavenly enchantress, can wake up Zar Kaiyun, Jian Chen frowned. Persuading the heavenly enchantress would not be easy. Mu'er? Can Mu'er really do it? Hao Wu asked, surprised. He rarely came in contact with his daughter and everything he knew about her based off rumors. As a result, he did not have a good understanding of her at all. Jian Chen knew more about her. There's no one else in this world besides the heavenly enchantress if you want Zar Kaiyun to wake up, Jian Chen swore. But Senior Hao Wu, getting your daughter to treat Zar Kaiyun will definitely be difficult. As a result, we can't rush this matter. Leave it to me. I'll visit Three Saint Island in a few days to see if I can persuade her, said Jian Chen. Hao Wu bitterly nodded and said nothing else. Afterward, Jian Chen took out a 5th grade violet cloud peach and comprehension tea leaf to give to Hao Wu. He wanted Hao Wu to become a saint emperor. However, Hao Wu declined. Being a saint emperor would definitely give him several thousand more years of life. To Hao Wu, that was several thousand more years of torment. Jian Chen put away the heavenly resources and left. He flew into the distance on his sword. Several hours later, when Jian Chen landed, he had arrived in a great desert. This was the territory of the 100 races, the wasteland continent. Chapter 1444. Soul Offering Ceremony. The wasteland continent was, originally, an uninhabitable sea of sand. The climate of the continent was extremely arid, and the environment was horrible. There were very few signs of life. However, after the 100 races suffered defeat and were chased from the beast god continent by the magical beasts, they moved to this desert, finally leading to a prosperous age of life in a land where resources were heavily depleted. Over the million years that the 100 races had spent on the wasteland continent, it had been modified countless times. However, due to its natural climate, they were unable to change the wasteland continent into a green oasis that was brimming with life even after several experts had poured their hearts out. As a result, greenery was extremely scarce on the continent. From afar, there seemed to be no other colors aside from the deep blue sky and endless stretches of yellow sand. At this moment, a smear of violet suddenly appeared on the distant horizon. It silently shot through the air at an unbelievable speed, disappearing into the distance in a single moment. Jian Chen rode a sword within the violet light as he made his way to the center of the continent. Jian Chen had learned where the War God Mountain was located long ago, so he did not stop at all on his journey, heading directly to the hall on the Ziying sword. He understood that if he wanted to find Tai Ta here, he just needed to proceed to the sacred mountain of the 100 races, War God Mountain. Jian Chen had already closed his eyes on the Ziying sword. The sword moved just far too quickly, so the surrounding landscape was reduced to a blur. It was impossible to distinguish the surroundings with his eyes, so he used his soul to travel. However, Jian Chen's face changed at this very moment. He immediately came to a halt as his eyes snapped open. They glowed, as if they could pierce through space and allow him to see what was going on in an extremely distant place. A speck of green light suddenly appeared in the distance. It bloomed like a flower, a tiny speck that became bright and resplendent. Very soon, the green light illuminated half the sky, dyeing it a deep green. Within it hid an extremely terrifying life force. It's the elven god tree. Jian Chen became fixated on the green as he stood on the Ziying sword. The light in his eyes flickered as surprise and doubt appeared on his face. This tree appeared in the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints before. However, it was only a small clipping back then. Looks like this is the true form of the tree. However, its terrifying life force even shocks me. Looks like this tree isn't as simple as it's rumored to be, Jian Chen thought. He had heard some rumors regarding the elven god tree. He did not know much about it, but he had learned from the rumors that the tree was recorded to only be on the level of a saint emperor. Now that he saw it today, his initial understanding was completely thrown out. Jian Chen stared at the green light, which lit up half the sky, for a while before continuing on as a streak of light. Where the green light has appeared just happens to be the War God Mountain. I wonder what's happened there, Jian Chen thought as he sped up slightly. As he approached the mountain, he entered the boundary of the green light. The green light invaded the violet light around him and came in contact with his body, immediately filling him with a comfortable feeling. At that moment, Jian Chen even felt like his lifespan was increasing. What shocked Jian Chen even more was that he still felt like his lifespan was increasing even though he had become a saint emperor and possessed the battle prowess of someone in the origin realm. This filled him with disbelief. Jian Chen swept over the land below with his soul, and actually discovered specks of light in the dry yellow sand. They were strands of grass sprouts, having appeared out of nowhere. They grew in the sand and gradually enveloped the land before rapidly growing at a visible rate. In just a minute, they had become several inches tall. In the blink of an eye, the expanse of sand had vanished from the area enveloped by the green light. The sand was replaced by green grass teeming with life. Jian Chen's soul enveloped an area of 200,000 kilometers. There were several cities and tribes of various sizes within his senses. However, regardless of their strength, they currently all knelt on their knees and bowed to the mountain. Their faces were filled with devotion. Jian Chen remained silent. He gazed into the distance and rapidly flew closer to the War God Mountain. He could vaguely see an ancient tree that was several thousand meters tall standing there. It was shining with a resplendent light as it reached out in all directions. It enveloped quite a portion of the continent. Its tremendous life force even made it difficult for Jian Chen to keep his composure. Jian Chen finally arrived outside War God Mountain. However, the mountain was currently enveloped by a barrier, and the barrier made it impossible to see what was going on inside. The elven god tree had taken root at the bottom of the barrier. One of its branches reached into the barrier and into the war god hole on the peak of the mountain. However, the tree was not actually present. It was only an illusion, created by several branches. Each branch was several hundred meters long. Who has come? A great cry rang out the moment Jian Chen approached the War God Mountain. With the voice, the space 100 meters around Jian Chen instantly froze. Several auras that came from Saint Emperors descended upon him at the same time. Jian Chen was not affected at all. His gaze remained fixated on the mountain as the light in his eyes flickered. The space 100 meters above Jian Chen gently pulsed and a few figures silently appeared. Every single one of them gave off a tremendous presence. They were all Saint Emperors, and they were glaring at Jian Chen. They were all experts of the 100 races. Jian Chen was familiar with them. He had seen many of them in the previous battle against the world of Forsaken Saints. They were the few Saint Kings that had managed to survive the battle, but they had all become Saint Emperors now. Jian Chen. The Saint Emperors recognized Jian Chen as well and were immediately surprised. Without any hesitation, they immediately recalled their presences and the space around Jian Chen returned to normal. It's Sovereign Jian Chen. We didn't know Sovereign Jian Chen had come, so if we have offended you, please forgive us. The Saint Emperors immediately became respectful and spoke with some gratitude. They all understood that they had become Saint Emperors because of their war god's assistance and the human sovereign's gifts. Tai Ta and Jian Chen's friendship was no secret among the four races. All of them had witnessed Tai Ta go to the Tian Yuan continent to ask Jian Chen for the heavenly resources. This matter had obviously reached the ears of the experts as well. What's happening on War God Mountain? And what's happening with my brother, Tai Ta? Jian Chen asked as he stared at the barrier in front of him. The barrier had been cast by around a dozen Saint Emperors. It concealed everything that was inside. Jian Chen's soul was unable to penetrate it, unless he removed the barrier. Esteemed sovereign of the humans, the war god is currently undergoing a soul offering ceremony. This ceremony is extremely important to the war god. We cannot afford to have anything go wrong. In order for it to be successful, we cast this barrier to lock down the mountain after gaining the war god's approval, replied a Saint Emperor of the 100 Races. It was an old woman with green fire flickering in her eyes. She was the Saint Emperor of the Flame Demons. I want you to open the barrier. I'm here, so there's no need to worry about safety. Unless an Origin Realm expert comes personally, no one will be able to approach this place, Jian Chen said without leaving any room for disagreement. The barrier hid everything inside. It was impossible to find out what was going on from the outside. He found this worrying. The Saint Emperors hesitated. They seemed troubled. A cold light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes. He coldly said, "If you don't open the barrier, I can only do so myself." Helpless, the Saint Emperors could only remove the barrier around the mountain. As soon as the barrier vanished, a tremendous pulse of energy along with a resplendent golden light appeared. The War God Hall at the very peak of the mountain let out a bright light, mixing with the green light from the Elven God Tree. The light illuminated the entire region and dyed the whole mountain golden. Countless people sat close to one another on the mountain, covering every inch of the land. All of them had their eyes closed while their faces were filled with devotion. They used a secret technique to condense a sliver of their soul, allowing it to drift out of the top of their heads. An illusionary branch of the Elven God Tree revolved around the top of the mountain. It used the branch to draw a profound formation, connecting everyone's soul together. After being refined by the formation, the souls turned into a wondrous energy that was channeled into the War God Hall. Jian Chen looked around before resting his gaze on the divine hall at the very top. He became rather stern. He felt that the divine hall was even more powerful than the beast god hall that belonged to the magical beasts. This unsettled him. Why is your soul offering ceremony so strange, where it needs the souls of so many people? Jian Chen asked in a deep voice. He could now see what was going on, but he was unable to tell whether it was beneficial or detrimental to Tai Ta. The soul offering ceremony has been passed down through the ancient records in the War God Hall. The records say that our war god must undergo this procedure, but we don't know the exact reason, said an Elven Saint Emperor. She was a beautiful woman who seemed only to be in her 20s. A pair of wings sat on her back, and she seemed to be divine. Chapter 1445. The Elven God Tree. Jian Chen frowned as he slowly glanced over all the people present. His gaze stopped on the figure of the Elven God Tree for some time before he looked at the formation drawn by the illusionary branch. The formation had connected all the soul fragments from the people on the mountain, and was channeling it into the War God Hall as a wondrous type of energy. However, Jian Chen was unsure as to what was going on in the War God Hall. He could clearly sense that the War God Hall was even more powerful than the Beast God Hall. His soul could not penetrate. Jian Chen stared at the bright divine hall for a while before a sliver of determination appeared in his eyes. With a single movement, he headed toward it. The door to the divine hall was not closed. Jian Chen was slightly worried about Tai Ta, so he wanted to enter to check on him. Although the war god of the 100 Races possessed the faith of the entire race, this ceremony was just far too odd. The entire process was being directed by a mysterious ancient tree, so Jian Chen had to take precautions. After all, something like this had happened to the White Tiger in the past as well. Sovereign Jian Chen, do not approach the War God Hall. The Saint Emperors all cried out as they rapidly ran toward Jian Chen. They wanted to stop him. However, Jian Chen had already arrived before the War God Hall. He was so fast that even the Saint Emperors were not able to catch up to him. Sovereign Jian Chen, not only will the war gods suffer severe losses if the ceremony is disturbed, but even the 990,000 people on the mountain will suffer a great backlash, which would be almost irrecoverable. Seeing how they could not catch up to the Jian Chen, the Saint Emperor sent him a message through a technique as quickly as they could. Worry filled their faces. Jian Chen paused, and after a slight moment of hesitation, he made his way to the door. The divine hall gave Jian Chen an impression that it was extremely powerful, but the more powerful something was, the more difficult it was to control. He believed that no one present could control the divine hall, so they obviously could not use its power. The moment Jian Chen headed toward the entrance, the elven god tree suddenly moved. With a flash of green light, a branch that was several meters thick blocked the entrance. The branch was illusionary and completely condensed from tremendous life force, but it stopped Jian Chen in his steps. A gleam of light flickered through Jian Chen's eyes, and he suddenly turned toward the elven god tree that extended into the sky. His gaze gradually sharpened, as if he wanted to see through the tree. This king knows that you are worried about the safety of the war god. Do not worry, the war god status among us, the god race, is not something you can imagine. We would never do something detrimental to the war god. An obscure voice rang through Jian Chen's head. It came from a female, and it was gentle but dignified. Jian Chen became stern in a single moment. He expanded his soul in all directions and became filled with caution. He did not know where the voice came from at all. Are you the one talking to me? Jian Chen asked gruffly as he stared at the figure of the elven god tree nearby. This ceremony is extremely important to the war god. Nothing can go wrong. Before the ceremony ends, do not enter the war god hall, or you will end up injuring the war god instead of helping him. The obscure voice appeared again. Jian Chen was still unable to find its origins. As soon as the voice finished speaking, the ancient branch at the entrance of the divine hall was removed. Jian Chen did not try to enter the divine hall any longer. Instead, he stood there as he stared at the elven god tree. He was certain that even if the speaker was not the tree, they were still closely connected to it. Who are you? Are you the spirit of the elven god tree? Jian Chen asked again. He was very perturbed. He had never thought that such a grand existence hid among the 100 races. It was impossible for her to be a saint emperor, since just being able to communicate to him without revealing her position was not something saint emperors could do. 3 days later, the ceremony will end. Before then, I hope you will not disturb the ceremony, just in case you cause it to fail. The voice rang out again and completely ignored Jian Chen's questions. All right. I'll wait here patiently for 3 days, responded Jian Chen before he left the war god mountain. He waited patiently, hovering away from the mountain, but his gaze was fixed on the ancient tree the entire time. The saint emperors who did not take part in the ceremony all looked around with uncertainty. Doubt filled their eyes. One of them could not hold back their curiosity and asked politely, Sovereign Jian Chen, may I ask who you were talking to? Is there a mysterious expert that we cannot sense here? Jian Chen remained silent. He understood that the obscure voice was probably only audible to him. 3 days later, the 990,000 people opened their eyes. Their faces were pale and haggard. They seemed extremely weak, but they were all filled with emotion. The gazes they directed at the war god hall were filled with respect that came from the bottom of their hearts. The figure of the elven god tree disappeared, returning to a branch that was stabbed into the ground. It was carefully collected by the elven saint emperor. The force of life in the surroundings disappeared with the figure of the tree. The formation had completely vanished, leaving only the war god hall shining as bright as it had been before, rivaling the sun. The vegetation that had grown on a small part of the continent, because of the teeming life force of the elven god tree, began to wither after it lost its source of life. The vegetation would soon be reduced to dead grass. Looks like the ceremony was successful. The ancient method in the records is right. The saint emperors of the 100 races all expressed their joy. The ancient method originated from the war god hall and, after the countless years it had been around, this was only the second time it had been used. The branch that had conjured the elven god tree had been examined countless times by Jian Chen's soul before it was collected by the elven saint emperor. It's an ordinary branch. There's no other secret to it aside from its terrifying life force, Jian Chen thought. He could not help but think about where the elven god tree actually was. At this moment, a terrifying presence radiated from the war god hall. Tai Ta emerged from the divine hall with long strides. He let out a lustrous light and stood 3 meters tall. His bearing was very dignified. Jian Chen looked at Tai Ta and smiled from the inside. He knew that his friend had truly grown. This growth was not an increase in strength or age but in temperament. We welcome the war god's emergence. All the people on the war god mountain, including the saint emperors, kneeled and bowed to Tai Ta. Their faces were filled with reverence from the bottom of their hearts, as if they were welcoming a god. Tai Ta seemed to ignore their kneeling. He looked at Jian Chen. One of them stood outside the divine hall while the other stood beyond the outskirts of the mountain. They stared at one another. A few seconds later, Tai Ta took a step and arrived before Jian Chen instantly. He patted Jian Chen's shoulder heavily and smiled. Jian Chen, I never thought that you would come to the wasteland continent to look for me so soon. I was undergoing the soul offering ceremony a few days ago and was cut off from the outside world, so I've made you wait. Tai Ta's strength was very great. If Jian Chen was not in possession of the chaotic body and was not so powerful, he probably would have struggled to endure Tai Ta's force. Your ceremony is very strange, actually requiring the souls of so many people. I was worried about you and almost charged into the divine hall. It's good seeing you fine now, Jian Chen smiled faintly. The ceremony is very strange. However, this ceremony has been passed down since the ancient times. It condenses the souls of 990,000 people to create the soul of the axe of the warring gods. The previous war god, Uncle Ergens, experienced this ceremony as well, said Tai Ta. Afterward, the axe imprint on his forehead began to shine, and a small golden axe flew out, turning into an awe-inspiring war axe in Tai Ta's hands. I learned after coming to the 100 races that the weapon in my hand can only display its greatest power when its form is fused with its soul. The axe I used before was only composed of the form and not the soul. The ceremony I just went through was to condense the soul of the axe, fusing the form with the soul, Tai Ta said as he stared at the golden axe in his hands. Jian Chen looked at the axe and could clearly feel its changes. The axe seemed like an inanimate object that had gained life. The pressure radiating from the axe became even more effective on the soul. Jian Chen, let's go and catch up properly in the War God Hall. Tai Ta put the axe away and pulled Jian Chen into the War God Hall. No outsider had ever set foot in the War God Hall in countless years. Jian Chen was the first. The two of them spoke for a very long time in the War God Hall. As soon as they thought about how they had used to be students in Kargath Academy but had now become sovereign-like figures to entire races, they both sighed emotionally. Tai Ta, can I ask you how much you know about the elven god tree? Jian Chen suddenly asked a question and looked at Tai Ta with interest. Tai Ta thought about the question seriously and said, I've only come to the 100 races recently, so I only have a rough understanding of each race. However, I do know some things regarding the elven god tree. It's said that the tree has already existed for an extremely long time. When the 100 races still resided on the beast god continent, before Uncle Ergens had been born, the elven god tree was there. It's always represented the elves. After we were defeated, the elven god tree was moved from the beast god continent to the wasteland continent with us, changing the territory of the elves into a great, lush forest. It uses its own life force to nourish the land, and it's never withered after so many years. There's even a rumor that the elven god tree cannot be destroyed. No matter how heavily damaged it becomes, it can completely recover in an instant. Chapter 1446. The elven god king Jian Chen remained silent because of what Tai Ta had told him. He gently frowned and sank into his thoughts. His mind was filled with matters regarding the elven god tree. A tree that had lived for over 1,000,000 years and was even more ancient than the 4 champions from the ancient times was no longer an ordinary tree, especially with its abnormal movements during the soul offering ceremony. Coupled with the obscure voice of unknown origins, it made Jian Chen feel that the tree was not as simple as it seemed. Then where did that obscure voice come from? Has the elven god tree gained self-consciousness, or is it someone else? Jian Chen wondered. In the past, the 100 races had been the only great race that had not possessed a saint emperor, but now that Jian Chen had personally come to the wasteland continent, he found that they were not as simple as people had imagined them to be. There was actually a mysterious existence, who even he himself was unable to detect, hidden on this barren continent. No one knew who they were since they had never been detected by others. Jian Chen, the elven god tree has a very powerful life force, but its battle prowess is just far too limited. It's only at the level of a saint emperor, so it won't be of great use. After we were defeated in the ancient times and the elven god tree was moved from the beast god continent to the wasteland continent, it's never moved again, Tai Ta said with a deep, muffled voice. He thought that Jian Chen wanted to ask if the tree could be moved to the Tian Yuan continent for the next major battle after Jian Chen had witnessed how extraordinary it was in battle. Jian Chen gently shook his head. Tai Ta, I feel like this tree is not as simple as you all think it is. There is definitely an even greater mystery behind it. I plan to visit the territory of the elves to properly examine the god tree. Tai Ta immediately stood up when he heard that and said, Jian Chen, I'll come with you. Jian Chen and Tai Ta left the war god hall together and made their way to the territory of the elves. An elven expert followed them, but they were not a saint emperor, only a saint king. Along the way, the saint king enthusiastically explained the situation of the elves to Jian Chen and Tai Ta. Jian Chen gained a rough understanding of the elves. The territory of the elves was only several 100,000 kilometers away from the war god mountain. When their race had first moved there, the place was still a desert, devoid of any life. Any type of vegetation struggled to survive. After the elven god tree took root and used its own tremendous life force to nourish the desert, the quality of the soil changed. Only then could a forest grow on the wasteland continent. Ancient trees that were several hundred meters tall could be seen everywhere. The entire forest was filled with life, and the vegetation was countless times more dense than any mountain on the Tian Yuan continent. Soon after Jian Chen and Tai Ta had entered the territory of the elves, the elven experts received the news. The saint emperor that Jian Chen had met outside the war god hall led around a dozen saint kings to welcome and receive them. The elven queen, Juligia the 33rd, welcomes the great war god and the esteemed human sovereign. The female saint emperor and the saint kings behind her all bowed to Jian Chen and Tai Ta. Elven queen, we've come this time with the intention of seeing the ancient tree of your esteemed race that has existed since ancient times. Would that be inconvenient for you? Jian Chen cut right to the chase and expressed their reason for coming. The elven queen hesitated slightly before allowing Jian Chen to visit the elven god tree. She knew very well that she could not object at all. Even ignoring Jian Chen's strength and status, just the war god standing beside him sucked away her courage to decline. Afterward, the elven queen personally led the way. She took Tai Ta and Jian Chen to the land where the elven god tree had taken root. Along the way, Jian Chen discovered quite a few elves dancing about through the forest and fluttering their wings. The males were handsome while the females were pretty. Pure smiles filled their faces. They seemed naive and lively. Several holes existed on some huge trees. That was where the elves stayed as well as where they cultivated. Because of their cultivation method, the holes did not harm the trees at all and would even hasten their growth, allowing them to become even taller and thicker. Jian Chen and Tai Ta walked several thousand kilometers, following the elven queen's lead. They entered the central region of the forest. Although the region was teeming with life, it was silent. There was not a single person visible as far as the eye could see. This is the forbidden region of us elves. Without the agreement of the elven queen, even the elders of our race cannot set foot here. This is because this is the place where our god tree has taken root. The elven god tree possesses an extremely venerated status within our territory, even though it's just a tree, the elven queen said with a solemn voice. Is this really just a tree? Jian Chen thought. He raised his head and looked ahead. Several dozen kilometers away, he saw a great tree that glowed with faint green light. Even though it was only several hundred meters tall, it greatly differed from the projections he had seen before. However, he could still tell with a single glance that it was the elven god tree. In Jian Chen's eyes, the elven god tree seemed no different than any other tree, aside from its green glow. It was very difficult to see the awe it had displayed on the battle against the foreign world and outside War God Mountain. However, as his soul approached the tree, it was stopped 100 meters away by a mysterious force, preventing it from getting any closer. Jian Chen raised his head to observe the ancient tree and slowly made his way over. In the end, he stopped 100 meters away from the elven god tree and closely examined it. It seems ordinary on the outside, just like any other tree, but a terrifyingly tremendous life force is hidden inside. This life force is so powerful that even I feel shocked. It's a tree, yet it's reached a state where it seems the same as its origin form. This is just amazing, Jian Chen softly said as he studied the tree. It seemed like he was just talking to himself. This mysterious elven god tree can fool the entire 100 races, but it cannot fool me. I have come to personally see you. I know you can hear me talking, so do you still plan on hiding? Jian Chen spoke to the tree. Tai Ta and the elven queen both suspiciously stared at Jian Chen. They felt that Jian Chen was saying something odd. Sigh. Suddenly, a sigh rang through Jian Chen's head, but he was unable to tell where it had come from at all. Come in. The obscure, female voice rang in Jian Chen's head once again. A human-sized hole suddenly appeared in the tree in front of him. The elven queen's eyes immediately narrowed. Shock filled her face. The elven god tree had always just been a tree with a supreme status throughout the history of the elves. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Without any hesitation, Jian Chen strode over. Just when Tai Ta and the elven queen behind him wanted to follow him in, they were stopped 100 meters away by a mysterious force. The force was extremely strange, and even Tai Ta was unable to overcome it. Jian Chen entered the hole in the tree and immediately disappeared. The tree returned to how it was before. There were no signs of what had just happened. Jian Chen arrived in a green space. It was empty, like a miniature world, but filled with the presence of life. Jian Chen stood in the center of the space. You sure are worthy of being known as the greatest human expert to reach such a level of cultivation within just a few decades and to discover this king's existence. Even in the saints' world, your talent belongs to the very top. The obscure voice rang through the space. It was gentle and pleasant but also dignified. That's the second time you've referred to yourself as a king. You shouldn't be a tree if you refer to yourself like that. If I've guessed correctly, you shouldn't be a tree at all. I'm very curious, and I also want to know a lot as to who you are. Jian Chen inquired. However, he was not as calm as he seemed on the surface. His heart churned. The voice that had just referred to herself as a king actually knew about the existence of the saints' world. Did that mean she was an expert from the saints' world? With your talent, you'll surpass me sooner or later, or even end up leaving me in the dust. As a result, you have the right to know some things. This king is Adriana, the strongest god king of the god race. I have come under the orders of my race's hall elders, descending here over 3 million years ago to welcome the return of the war god. Chapter 1447. Experts of the God King's throne. Jian Chen's eyes immediately widened as disbelief filled his face. His heart surged even more, and he almost lost all composure. He had even begun to doubt his ears at that moment. A God King. The owner of the obscure voice was actually a God King. This was just far too astounding. Jian Chen had learned from the sword spirits long ago that beyond the origin realm was godhood. Godhood was split into another 4 cultivation levels, which were deity, god, over-god, and God King. God King was the peak of godhood, and one more step would lead to the highest realm of cultivation in the saints' world, the primordial realm. Adriana was the strongest God King among the god race of the saints' world. That would mean that even among the God Kings, her strength was ranked near the top. Jian Chen was extremely shocked, struggling to return to his senses even after quite some time. A God King was actually hidden among the 100 races and had never been discovered over the countless years. This was just far too shocking, far too astounding. Jian Chen finally began to recover after a long time. He sucked in a deep breath and stared at the empty green space with some lingering shock. He asked, Senior, Junior doesn't understand something. You said that you came under the orders of the hall elders to welcome the war god. Why did you not interfere when the previous war god, Ergens, was slain by the winged tiger god? With your strength as a god king, protecting the previous war god would have been extremely easy, wouldn't it? Sigh. Adriana deeply exhaled as her voice became bitter. She said, I've already lost that ability. I may be the greatest god king of the god race, but I'm only a weak soul now. After being weak for countless years, I need to sleep and nourish my soul so it doesn't disperse. Jian Chen understood. The 100 races had a god king, yet she had never been discovered after so many years and had never acted either because Adriana was only a fragile soul now. Even if she wanted to do something, she did not have the power. Senior, you're a god king. You're already invincible here, so may I ask how you ended up like this? Did something go wrong during the process of coming down, or was it some other reason? Jian Chen carefully asked. I'm not the only God King in this world. The God King of the Ice Goddess Hall, Xue Yunlan, came down as well. I arrived several thousand years before Xue Yunlan, but she went overboard when she came down. As soon as she came down, she sealed up this world. Not only did she seal up the tunnel to the saints' world, she stopped everyone from being able to reach the origin realm. Even the god race saint emperors who followed me to this lower world were affected, preventing them from reaching the origin realm. For this, I engaged in a great battle against her. Unfortunately, our difference in strength was extremely great even though I was the greatest god king of the god race. I was not her opponent, so I was slain by her in the end. Xue Yunlan wiped out my body and heavily injured my soul, making it extremely difficult to recover. The teeming life force within my body turned into this tree of life to nourish my weakened soul so that it would not disperse. However, Xue Yunlan would never dare to kill me off. Once I die, the hall elders in the higher world would immediately know what had happened. Jian Chen's heart beat heavily. He could not help but think about Protector Xue. He sighed in surprise. Is Protector Xue really that strong? You're both god kings, but you're still not her opponent even as the greatest god king of the god race? Xue Yunlan has already arrived at the very peak of god king. There is a god king's throne in the saints' world that records 1,000 of the most powerful god kings in the entire saints' world. Xue Yunlan's ranking is 9th. There are only a few god kings who have surpassed her in the entire saints' world. I only rank in the top 100. Her strength is not something you can imagine, Adriana gently sighed. Jian Chen gasped. Only now did he understand just how terrifying Protector Xue was, the same person who was always polite to his sister. There were many god kings in the vast saints' world, yet Protector Xue ranked 9th among all of them. This was a great surprise to Jian Chen. And that was what happened over 3 million years ago. Although Xue Yunlan's strength has not been able to progress during the 3 million years she stayed here, much less make a breakthrough, she's become even more powerful now, Adriana's voice rang out. It was filled with bitterness. Although she had stayed in the lower world with Xue Yunlan for over 3 million years, Xue Yunlan's strength had increased while she was only a weak soul right now. Even recovering her strength was just an extravagant wish, let alone making any improvements. You can only rely on yourself to fend off the threat of the foreign world. I am unable to help you. I am also a god king that's come down from a higher world, so I can't interfere with too many matters regarding this world, or I will be punished by the laws of the world. The treasure that the hall elders bestowed upon me to fend off the punishment of the laws was destroyed in the battle against Xue Yunlan. I can already sense that Xue Yunlan has found the snow goddess of the ice goddess hall. Soon, Xue Yunlan will leave with her. At that time, the seal of this world will shatter and the tunnel to the saints' world will open again. The formation that restricts everyone from reaching the origin realm will vanish as well. At that time, you'll be able to reach the saints' world. At the same time, since you're friends with the war god, I hope you can pass on my message. He cannot take revenge for the previous war god before he has truly become powerful. That winged tiger god from 1,000,000 years ago is not as simple as he seemed. Even though he only displayed strength of someone from the origin realm, he makes my heart jump. Even if he's not as powerful as me, he is definitely in possession of a treasure that can heavily injure me. I also get the same feeling from the human Mo Tianyun. I have become extremely exhausted after assisting the war god undergo the soul offering ceremony, so I am about to fall into a slumber again. Do not expose my existence. When the winged tiger god slayed the previous war god, he sealed up his corpse and shed 18 pieces of fur. Those pieces are the only key to the seal of the war god, and opening the seal will allow the current war god to obtain the essence and power of the previous war god. Chapter 1448. Changes to the Saint Artifact. When Jian Chen emerged from the elven god tree, Adriana sank into a slumber. The soul offering ceremony that Tai Ta had gone through had been secretly directed by Adriana. She had expended a great deal of energy, so she needed to fall asleep since she no longer possessed her strength as a god king. Jian Chen stood 100 meters away as he stared at the elven god tree that let out a faint, green glow. His emotions were extremely mixed. He now knew that the elven god tree before him was not a tree but a god king. Jian Chen, what happened? Tai Ta asked Jian Chen out of doubt as he stood beside him. He had no idea what had happened within the elven god tree. The elven queen stared fixedly at Jian Chen as well while she stood beside Tai Ta. She wanted to know the answer to that question very much. The elven god tree had existed among the elves for so long, yet something like this had never happened before. It had never let someone into its main trunk. Jian Chen said nothing. He gazed at the tree before bowing. He said, "This is a god king's tree." Afterward, he turned around and left. Tai Ta scratched his head in confusion. He glanced at the tree suspiciously a few times before silently leaving with Jian Chen. A god king's tree? What is Sovereign Jian Chen trying to say? The elven queen stood there in a daze. She closely observed the elven god tree while confusion filled her face. Although she did not understand what Jian Chen meant by God King's tree, she understood that the elven god tree was probably not as simple as her predecessors had understood it to be. Otherwise, how could it have been worthy of receiving a bow from the human sovereign? However, what Jian Chen did not know was that soon after he had left, the bow he gave to the elven god tree was recorded in the archives of the race. At the same time, the God King's tree he had mentioned was clearly recorded as well. Tai Ta and Jian Chen left the only forest on the wasteland continent after visiting the elves. Along the way, Jian Chen also asked Tai Ta about the matter regarding the keys to Erjin's corpse, the beast furs. The Hall Elders of the War God Hall have reported that they've already gathered 11 of the 18 beast first. There's just 7 left that they haven't obtained. 2 of them are with the Beast God Hall on the Beast God continent, 1 is with Mercenary City on the Tianyuan continent, 1 is with the Tyrant's Blade School of the Protector clans, and the whereabouts of the last 3 are unknown, said Tai Ta. Jian Chen thought of something. With a flip of his hand, 3 palm-sized beast furs immediately appeared. These beast furs were once crucial for his breakthrough to sainthood. He had given the 3 beast fur to others to cultivate with, but had taken them soon after back. Tai Ta, I just happen to have 3 beast furs. These must be the 3 with unknown whereabouts. I'll give them to you right now. I'll help you find the other beast furs as well, said Jian Chen before passing his 3 beast furs to Tai Ta. There was obviously no need to be polite since Tai Ta and Jian Chen were close, so Tai Ta accepted the 3 beast furs. At this time, Jian Chen's face suddenly changed. A golden stream of light immediately shot from his forehead, turning into a fist-sized golden tower before him. Tai Ta, I need to enter the artifact space, so I'll leave it with you for now. Jian Chen hurried into the artifact space before Tai Ta could ask why. A white-robed middle-aged man currently stood in a majestic hall within the artifact space. He sternly stared ahead. He was the artifact spirit of the artifact space. An extremely powerful but not very large formation shone with resplendent light, illuminating the hall in front of the artifact spirit. To no surprise, the radiant saint force origin energy refined by the artifact was all stored within the formation. The origin energy of radiant saint force was crucial for allowing radiant saint masters to go from class 6 to 7 and from class 7 to 8. However, the world did not possess any by itself. The reason why the saint artifact existed was to absorb the radiant saint force in the world and transform it into origin energy. The seal within the artifact space had existed for an extremely long time, so long that it had been there before the artifact spirit was born. At the same time, it was the only place in the artifact space that the artifact spirit could not control. Over the countless years the saint artifact had existed, the amount of origin energy it had stored up had already reached a terrifying point. However, the seal would only weaken once every 50 years, and every time it weakened, only a bare minimum of the origin energy would escape, allowing people to take it away and thus giving birth to class 7 radiant saint masters on the Tianyuan continent. At this moment, a violet streak of light shot over with lightning-like speed. It vanished into the hall. Jian Chen had made his way over as quickly as he could once he received the news from the artifact spirit. As soon as Jian Chen arrived, his gaze was drawn to the powerful seal. He immediately frowned because the seal that held in all the origin energy was extremely unstable. It showed signs of shattering. Greetings to the master. The artifact spirit greeted Jian Chen with a bow. Jian Chen stared at the seal and asked, Artifact spirit, what's happening here? Master, I am not too sure as to what the exact situation is, because I only just discovered the abnormality of the seal. However, according to my close observations, I have found that a foreign force appeared at a certain time within the seal. Even though there is only a sliver of it, it is so powerful that it makes me shiver. It's currently eating away the seal bit by bit, responded the artifact spirit. Jian Chen narrowed his eyes and stared at the seal. Indeed, he discovered the foreign force that did not belong to the seal, as described by the artifact spirit. After a moment of observation, he suddenly became extremely stern. There was only just a sliver of the foreign force, but Jian Chen sensed it as a fatal threat. Just how did this foreign force appear? Jian Chen thought as the light in his eyes flickered with uncertainty. He thought about Adriana, but he quickly shook his head. This force clearly did not match Adriana's power, and he could not think of a reason why she would want to help him. Master, the seal is slowly being eaten away by the energy. If this continues, the seal will completely collapse in just a few days. If the seal is unable to keep it busy and if the foreign force erupts in the Saint Artifact, the outcome will be. The artifact spirit said with a heavy voice as his complexion became horrendous. The Saint Artifact could only resist attacks from Saint Emperors, and a few more powerful Saint Emperors would have been enough to destroy it, let alone the foreign force that surpassed Saint Emperor. Once the Saint Artifact was destroyed, he would disperse as well. Chapter 1449. Collecting the beast furs. Jian Chen's complexion became ugly. He worried that it really would turn out like what the artifact spirit had said, where once the foreign force was free from the seal, it would explode and obliterate the Saint Artifact. Not only would the Saint Artifact be destroyed, but the artifact spirit would disperse as well, dying. The artifact spirit was inseparable from the Saint Artifact. It had been born in the artifact space. They mutually coexisted. Of course, this was true unless he was as powerful as the sword spirits, who could continue to exist even after the artifacts they belonged to were destroyed. Quite a lot of the seal has been destroyed already. Looks like this foreign force has already been here for quite some time, Jian Chen said with a gruff voice. What he wanted to understand the most was just where did this foreign force come from. It's a pity that I can't control everything here and only just discovered the abnormal pulses of energy from this seal as well as the abnormality here. The artifact spirit gently sighed and felt bitter. Jian Chen and the artifact spirit stood there as they stared at the seal. They thought about methods to deal with it in an attempt to remove the foreign force before it could erupt after it completely ate away the seal. Unfortunately, the two of them could only sigh after racking their brains. There was nothing they could do to the foreign force. Although there was only a sliver of this foreign force, it was extremely powerful. Jian Chen was not confident he could disperse it even if he erupted with his full battle prowess, which was equivalent to the origin realm. At the same time, the Saint Artifact was unable to withstand the power of the origin realm. If Jian Chen really did display his full strength, the Saint Artifact probably would collapse before he could even launch an attack on the foreign force. This foreign force is eating away at the seal bit by bit in an extremely gentle method. Not only is it able to destroy the seal, but it probably won't harm the Saint Artifact either. Looks like this force is harmless for now, or why would it go to such great lengths with its power if it wanted to destroy the Saint Artifact? Jian Chen pondered silently. However, he was still unsure whether the force would destroy the Saint Artifact in the end or not. Jian Chen left the artifact spirit there to closely observe any changes to the seal. He then left the artifact space. When he emerged, he learned that Tai Ta had already taken the Saint Artifact with him back to the War God Hall. In the War God Hall, Jian Chen got Tai Ta to summon many Hall Elders and learned about the current force of the 100 races as well as all the trump cards they had on hand. He needed this information so that he could make preparations to fend off the next wave of the invasion. He had come to the 100 races this time to see Tai Ta as well as to truly understand all the trump cards that the 100 races possessed. No one understood the 100 races better than the Hall Elders of the War God Hall. Even Tai Ta did not know as much as them since he had only just arrived. If it was before the invasion, the 100 races would definitely find this request outrageous if Jian Chen had come as a human to investigate the 100 races. Even if he was the human sovereign, the Hall Elders would not tell him anything. Yet the Hall Elders told Jian Chen everything he wanted to know right now. This was because they too understood that the threat of the foreign world was just far too great. If the 4 races did not work together, they would not be able to stop the foreign world, which would lead to their extinction. However, Jian Chen was disappointed in the end. The 100 races did have some trump cards, enough to stop a large-scale invasion from the Tian Yuan continent or the Beast God continent, but they could only be used to deal with Saint Emperors. They were helpless against experts from the origin realm. And they had already used quite a few of these trump cards to fend off the first part of the invasion. Over a dozen forbidden artifacts that had been passed down throughout the ages among each race had been destroyed. Even the treasure of the dwarves, the Heaven's Guard, had been rendered unusable as well. Jian Chen, I feel like this War God Hall can stop Origin Realm experts. Tai Ta could not help but add when he saw Jian Chen frown. Jian Chen glanced at the majestic War God Hall and asked, Tai Ta, can you refine this divine hall? Tai Ta scratched his head. I can already fuse my soul into the divine hall and know everything that happens within it, but I still can't control it. It seems like I can only refine a small fraction of the divine hall with my current strength, and it'll only let me expand or shrink the divine hall, allowing me to carry it with me like your saint artifact. I still won't be able to use the power of the divine hall. I need to fully refine it to do that. Jian Chen did not find his response surprising at all. He knew that the War God Hall was extraordinary, even more powerful than the Supreme Divine Hall in Mercenary City and the one on the Beast God continent. How could an ordinary Saint Emperor control such a powerful divine hall so easily? He had even guessed that this divine hall did not belong to this world at all and was brought down from the Saints' world by Adriana. Tai Ta, around how long will it take you to refine a small part of this divine hall? Jian Chen asked. Tai Ta pondered silently for a while before replying with uncertainty. Probably several decades or even over a century. Jian Chen shook his head with a bitter smile. That was just too long. The world of Forsaken Saints would never give them so much time to prepare. Jian Chen bid farewell to Tai Ta and left. He emerged from the War God Hall. He had completed his journey to the Wasteland continent and returned to the Tian Yuan continent. The first thing he did when he returned was visit the Tyrant's Blade School of the 10 Protector clans. When he asked them for the beast fur, the great elders immediately went into their treasury in their ancestral divine hall to retrieve it. They were polite and gave it to Jian Chen. Afterward, Jian Chen went to where Mercenary City had once stood. Although Mercenary City had ceased to exist on the continent long ago, the miniature world still remained. The organization had weakened, but they still possessed their deep heritage. Jian Chen asked the Grand Elder of Mercenary City about Great Elder Tianjian in the miniature world. He learned that Tianjian was still refining the Supreme Divine Hall of Mercenary City, and still had not completed it since he had gone into seclusion. The Grand Elder even took Jian Chen into the miniature world where the Divine Hall was stored. Jian Chen felt that the mysterious power hidden within the structure was extremely energetic and that the Divine Hall gave off a tremendous pressure, filling up the surrounding space. It would cause the surroundings to distort from time to time. Jian Chen gazed at the floating Divine Hall in the distance and sighed inside. When he had heard Tianjian mention the beast furs in the past, he had also learned that Mercenary City's beast fur was stored in the treasury of the Supreme Divine Hall, and it could only be opened and retrieved by someone who controlled the structure. Looks like I won't be able to retrieve the beast fur in Mercenary City for now, Jian Chen thought and did not stay any longer. He left the miniature world. Afterward, Jian Chen visited the Beast God continent. There were 2 beast furs on the Beast God continent, so if he gathered them, he would have all 18 beast furs except for the one left in Mercenary City. Chapter 1450. Settling down magical beasts. Jian Chen made his way to the Beast God Hall after he arrived on the Beast God continent. Song Qiong personally received him, inviting him into the Beast God Hall. The white tiger remained on the 99th floor of the Divine Hall, still accepting its legacy. The 99th floor seemed like it had entered a whole different space, having been cut off from the world completely. Jian Chen could not sense what was going on inside at all, and whatever was happening inside was not creating any disturbances either. Rum Guinness remained within the Beast God Hall as she eagerly waited for her child to emerge. After learning that Jian Chen had come, she immediately went to greet him. Rum Guinness was grateful toward Jian Chen and had always treated him as her savior. She knew that if it were not for Jian Chen's assistance, her child probably would not have been able to live until now, let alone enter the 99th floor of the Beast God Hall to accept his legacy. The 3 of them conversed a little before Jian Chen approached the main topic. He asked Song Qiong about the 2 other beast furs in the Beast God Hall. Song Qiong understood that Jian Chen wanted to gather the 18 beast furs to remove a seal that the ancient winged tiger god had cast down. Without any hesitation, he immediately made his way into the depths of the 97th floor of the Beast God Hall. When he returned, he held 2 snow-white furs in his hand, to no one's surprise, and said, "There are mysteries hidden within these 2 beast furs. It seems like extremely profound mysteries of the world are hidden within them. All the predecessors of the Beast God Hall have looked at them over the countless years that they've been in our possession and have attempted to understand their mysteries, attempting to use them to surpass Saint Emperor, but no one has ever been able to benefit from the two furs after all these years. During my generation, these two beast furs were kept by Kaiser, Lanky Rose, and me. We had reached an agreement long ago that each person would hold on to them for 100 years to comprehend them. They have just happened to end up with me this century. The two beast furs have remained in our Beast God Hall for who knows how long, because they're extremely valuable, so they've always been stored in here. All the Saint Emperors who were in possession of these two beast furs had to leave them in the Divine Hall if they ever went out, because only in the Beast God Hall could they never be lost. Since Sovereign Jian Chen needs them now, I'll make the decision to gift them to you. I hope they will help repel the world of forsaken saints in the future. Jian Chen accepted the two beast furs without holding back. He sighed emotionally at how abnormally successful he was at collecting the rest of the beast furs. Afterward, Jian Chen asked Songqiong for some land where he could let the various magical beasts in the Saint artifact to settle down. Songqiong obviously agreed to Jian Chen's tiny request and gave him a few spiritual mountains that belonged to the Tiger Clan without any hesitation. He ordered the Tiger Clan to move. Although the Tiger Clan had the support of Lanky Rose, the experts of the clan knew that they were approaching their end. Their ruler had tried to harm the young winged tiger god, which was heresy. They would face retribution that could wipe out the entire clan. As a result, the people of the clan voiced no objections to Songqiong's order. They complied and silently moved their clan. They were extremely cooperative. The Tiger Clan only hoped that the winged tiger god would spare their innocent clansmen after it completed its inheritance. Jian Chen arrived at the mountains, where the Tiger Clan had once resided, and let out all the magical beasts in the artifact space. An unpredictable change was about to happen to the Saint artifact, something that could possibly destroy the entire object. It was no longer suitable for magical beasts to live in it. However, the magical beasts had lived in the artifact space for too long. They had already adapted to the environment there, so when they suddenly emerged on the Beast God continent, which was extremely unfamiliar to them, the high-class magical beasts were fine while the weaker ones became troubled. The artifact space was its own world, and its energy was different from the Beast God continent. The relatively stronger magical beasts quickly adapted when they first emerged, but the weaker magical beasts actually suffered from peculiar effects and could no longer cultivate. Many low-class magical beasts were actually unable to absorb the energy of the world, or they would risk blowing up. Jian Chen did nothing after learning this. They needed to conquer this situation themselves. If these magical beasts wanted to continue thriving on the brutal Beast God continent, they would be baptized by many battles. He could only help them so much. Soon after the magical beasts had settled down, the mountains received their first wave of guests. They were members of the Pang clan and the leader was a Class 8 magical beast. He had brought many Class 7 magical beasts in human form with him along with great gifts. They were very polite. Jian Chen did not take part in anything. He observed everything from the peak of a mountain. There had been fighting and slaughter in the artifact space where the magical beasts used to live, but it was nothing compared to the brutality of the Beast God continent. Jian Chen felt slightly guilty given how changes were happening to the Saint artifact, and he had to move them all onto the brutal Beast God continent. He decided to watch over them for a few days before leaving. After all, many of the magical beasts who lived in the Saint artifact had treated it as home. The esteemed guests of the Pang clan got along well and befriended the new magical beasts very soon. If an outsider had watched them, they would have believed that they were good friends who had only just been reunited. After learning that the magical beasts had always stayed in the jail-like artifact space, the guests of the Pang clan did not show any prejudice or scorn. Instead, they enthusiastically explained everything about the Beast God continent to them, rambling endlessly. Very soon, a Class 7 magical beast found Jian Chen to vent its grievances. Because they had remained in the artifact space for far too long, some unique abilities of magical beasts had disappeared from them. The magical beasts on the Beast God continent all possess the ability to devour monster cores and refine the energy within, but they no longer possess that ability. Jian Chen frowned before gently sighing. There was nothing he could do to help them with these matters. All he could do was tell Songqiong to secretly take care of them. The new environment of the Beast God continent was what truly suited magical beasts. They had existed in the artifact space for too long, and so some of their abilities had changed. They needed to adapt themselves after arriving here. However, to Jian Chen's surprise, 3 Class 8 magical beasts hurried over from different directions and joined the small group. The three magical beasts had lived in the artifact space in the past and had broken out with Rue Jin, Hong Lian, and Heiyu but had gone their separate ways. Chapter 1451. The Seal Breaks, 1. The magical beasts from the artifact space were familiar with the three Class 8 magical beasts because they were their seniors. The Class 8 magical beasts had once been respected and feared, and several Class 7 magical beasts had even gained their protection in the past. After all, there had been around a dozen Class 8 magical beasts in the artifact space. There had been some competitions and enmity between some of them. However, all the high-class magical beasts that had just entered the outside world were extremely excited when the three Class 8 magical beasts joined. From the conversations they had had with the Peng clan, they had learned how brutal life was on the Beast God continent. Even some of the Class 7 magical beasts would not be able to find a place where they could settle down permanently. However, the situation would be drastically different if they had the protection of three powerful Class 8 magical beasts. From then on, the magical beasts from the artifact space all forgot about their past disagreements, as long as their disagreements had not reached a point of no return, and banded together against the foreign world. They formed their own tribe. The three Class 8 magical beasts reigned over the tribe, allowing the magical beasts from the artifact space to truly gain stable footing on the Beast God continent. They also secretly received care and concern from the Peng clan. As long as Songqiong was around, no powerful clan would ever show any disrespect to the Peng clan on the Beast God continent. After all, the Beast God continent was no longer balanced between three people. Songqiong had become the only ruler on the Beast God continent after Kaiser and Lankiros had fled. The Peng clan had basically become the imperial clan of the continent. 3 days later, Jian Chen silently left. He left the Beast God continent on the Ziying sword, quickly flying over the ocean. This time, he did not travel in the direction of the Tian Yuan continent, the Wasteland continent, or the Sea Realm. He headed toward the Arctic. As soon as he approached the ocean in the north, the temperature plummeted. He was very close to the Arctic and the Ice Goddess Hall. The sea below was covered with large icebergs. In the distance, the icy tundra of the north was vaguely visible. Jian Chen hovered above the cold sea. The Ziying sword hung in the air, remaining 30 meters long, while shining with a resplendent violet light. Jian Chen sat on it, resting with his eyes closed. The saint artifact let out a faint, golden light as it hovered before him. Most of the seal in the artifact space had already collapsed, and the day when it would be completely eaten away was drawing closer and closer. Strands of radiant saint force origin energy that had been accumulated over countless years would drift out from time to time. The seal had already become so damaged that it was unable to keep the origin energy sealed in. Jian Chen silently waited on the Ziying sword. Although his eyes were closed and he seemed like he was cultivating, he was actually devoting his attention to what was happening within the artifact space. 2 hours later, the space 100 meters away from Jian Chen violently distorted. With a gentle bang, there seemed to be something smashing against the space in an extremely brutal method, creating a blurry gate. Soon, a dazzling golden light poured out and, almost the same instant the light appeared, a tall figure appeared. Tai Ta arrived before Jian Chen in a flash. As he looked at Jian Chen who sat on his sword, he said with his deep, gentle voice, "Jian Chen, I'm here." Jian Chen opened his eyes and stood up on his sword. The Ziying sword immediately transformed into a streak of violet light and shrank to its original size before sticking to Jian Chen's back. Jian Chen hovered high in the air as he looked at Tai Ta. He seemed rather stern, but just when he wanted to say something, the space 100 meters away suddenly twisted once again. 3 space gates formed at almost the same time and Yang Lai, Gue Hai Yi Dao, and Feng Xiaotian emerged. Feng Xiaotian was no longer a saint king but a saint emperor. He had not reached the peak yet, but that was only a matter of time. The 3 of them had once reached the origin realm. Even though their strength had fallen and they could not return to the origin realm, they still possessed saint artifacts. Their strength could not be compared to saint emperors. As soon as the 3 of them appeared, they narrowed their eyes and stared at the space behind Jian Chen. A hazy woman, who was basking in a gentle blue light, silently appeared 30 meters away from Jian Chen. She did not give off any presence at all, just like a ghost. The sea goddess had come as well. She was a true origin realm expert as well as the only champion from the ancient times that had managed to survive. The ancient winged tiger god and Mo Tianyun had vanished long ago, so they were labeled as dead by many people. As soon as Tai Ta, Yang Lai, Gue Hai Yi Dao, Feng Shaotian, and the sea goddess appeared, all of them became stunned when they saw that several of the most powerful people in the world had arrived beside Jian Chen. They had all been invited by Jian Chen, but they did not think that Jian Chen would invite the other strongest people in the world as well. This piqued their interest. Great-grandson, may I ask you what important matter you need to deal with, which requires you to call us all over? Yang Lai cared Jian Chen. He glanced at the snowy tundra that was barely visible in the distance from time to time. Jian Chen clasped his hands at them and said, "Please do not resist, I will take you into the artifact space." With that, Jian Chen got the saint artifact to suck everyone into the artifact space. Tai Ta, Yang Lai, Gue Hai Yi Dao, Feng Shaotian, the sea goddess, and Jian Chen all appeared outside the hall where the seal was stored. As soon as they had appeared, Yang Lai, Gue Hai Yi Dao, Feng Shaotian, and the sea goddess discovered that the artifact space was extremely weak, unable to withstand their powers, which had surpassed Saint Emperor, so they immediately concealed their presences. Jian Chen brought them into the hall. He said nothing, getting them to personally check the changes occurring to the seal. Tai Ta, Yang Lai, Gue Hai Yi Dao, Feng Shaotian, and the sea goddess were all extraordinary people. They discovered the abnormality of the seal very soon and immediately became stern. There's an extremely powerful force in the seal. This space should have collapsed the moment this force appeared, but the force is not destroying this space. Instead, it's using a gentle method to eat away at the seal. This is strange, Gue Hai Yi Dao said with a heavy heart. This supreme force can easily kill us when we were in our peak condition, so it's definitely not something that Origin Realm experts possess. It's the energy from a godhood expert at the very least, and one that has reached the upper limits of godhood. Jian Chen, have you seen that person in the Ice Goddess Hall? Feng Shaotian frowned. Besides Tai Ta and Jian Chen, everyone narrowed their eyes and stared at Jian Chen when that person from the Ice Goddess Hall was mentioned. Jian Chen shook his head. I have indeed seen her, but the force in the seal is not left behind by her. Even the artifact spirit does not know where it came from, as if it appeared out of nowhere. My only worry right now is whether or not this force will destroy the Saint artifact and reach the outside world once the seal collapses. That's right. This powerful force even makes me fearful. If it erupted in the outside world, the outcome would be unfathomable, said the sea goddess. Her figure was obscured, but it was possible to tell how stern she was through her voice. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.